called for an audit of the 2022 presidential election results, saying it will eliminate doubts about the results announced by IEBC.
We are aware that the Supreme Court has pronounced itself to the audit of the results. But what we want is, if we have been having issues of feedback, and I tell you that the issue of result transmission was a suggestion from the PPLC in Naivasha, so that the result part, you agree, you sit in the table under the PPLC, not as the registrators in Parliament, but as members of PPLC, so that you agree on the games of the rule. How will the result be transmitted, so that now we could not be having any problem now talking about transmission.
Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei says he won't be intimidated to drop the proposal he made in Parliament over the increment of a presidential term. And despite the UDA party distancing itself from Cherargei's push, he said that his proposal was made for the interest of the people of Kenya. In an interview on Citizen TV, he added that his idea is so that whoever gets to be president can have an ample time to deliver on his promises.
Normally in Kenya, because this is unique to Kenya, is that 1 year after you assume office, you always do the supreme litigation issues, then the issues of settling down, like appointment of cabinet, vetting, realigning the government with your agenda. That 1 year goes. So again, after the fourth, the fifth year, you know, Kenyans like campaigns. The 5th year is only wasted, and even the statistics have shown even the economy is doing badly at that year because the country goes back to campaign mode. So you only have 3 years that you can really work for the people. And I think if you give 7 years, you minus the 2 that one you do in settling, and then 1 during the campaigning period, you'll get 5 years, which all Kenyans are arguing about.
The Ministry of Education has unveiled the new grading structure set to be implemented in the 2023 KCSE examination. Education CS Ezekiel Machogu said the proposal to use only 2 mandatory subjects was guided by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms. Machogu said the new reform measure is expected to increase the number of students qualifying for higher education learning.
In the new grading system that will be applied to the 2023 KCSE examination, the only 2 mandatory subjects will be mathematics and 1 language, either English language, Kiswahili, or Kenyan Sign Language. In addition to the 2 mandatory subjects, the Kenya National Examination Council will consider another 5 best performed subjects. If one is good in sciences and they does well in other science subjects, that is what will count. Or if one is good in humanities and they scores highly in humanities, that is what will count in the final assessment.
The multi-stakeholders meeting aimed at discussing the country's preparedness to handle El Nino will be held Thursday at 10 a.m. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says the meeting seeks to ensure the country is fully prepared to handle El Nino and other emergencies that might arise from that.
Humanitarian agencies like Red Cross, international organizations, our development partners, and most important, all the 47 county governors, because in one way or another, they'll have to work with the national government to deal with the various challenges that will come with El Nino. The governor, Nairobi, is very critical. There are drainage challenges in this city, and other cities of Mombasa, Eldoret, Nakuru, that we need to prepare. We need to work together between the national government and the county governments so that as a country we prepare for the challenges that will come with El Nino.
Meanwhile, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has urged Kenyans to as well prepare themselves for the results that are anticipated to lead to losses.
We are just emerging from the worst drought in 40 years. We are expecting El Nino after a dry spell. Enough cereal dryers to go around and save on post-harvest losses. Meanwhile, we must prepare for floods. Infrastructure will be destroyed, as we have seen sadly in Libya. By now, you must have realized I am deliberately mapping the scenarios in response to your request for thoughts on how WFP can utilize its finance to serve a deserving world better.
This is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
It's critical that people pay taxes. But then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this is now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest? And we say, these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
You know, with politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a leader, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need.
This is one of the hottest show that we can never miss in the morning, and it's a show that really gives the real situation in the situation room.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you guys so much. Ndutha, nice meeting you. Even beautiful in person more than in photos.
Say that again.
Character is like pregnancy, you cannot hide it. You know, people hiding here and there, you know, but after 2-3 months, 5 months, now you see. So that is why the attitude that you are showing us, you're pregnant.
It's like what my grandmother would say. You cannot pickpocket a naked man.
How's that? It's communal, isn't it?
No comment. The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanya.
Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It gets over.
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes?
What the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself. When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, you know, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, you know, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
If a lion shows you its teeth, it doesn't mean it likes you.
It doesn't mean it likes you. It won't start. A liar calls as witness one who is either dead or far away. Say it in Kiswahili.
Ben low, nin inte, yenin der, ayu markati kadikta. You know this character called liar. He has disturbed people. So when you tell him, who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats a lot, I cannot survive there. You know, sweating is biblical. Good. And he must blame it on Adam, not me. You know, because Adam messed up and he was told, now you fellow you, by the sweat of your brow, thou shalt eat.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Good morning. And we're on Tuesday, second day of the week, and looking at what these roads look like. Not too bad right about now. Let's take a quick look at traffic and what's likely to happen as we get into Tuesday properly. Coming off of Thika Superhighway, just a little bit of it here and there. As you're getting towards the Outer Ring Junction, it's going to pack up for you just a bit, but you'll be fine. It's moving, it's flowing. We're not at any bumper-to-bumper levels just yet. Jogo Road traffic is also starting to build up, and we'll see that as you get towards Landis and out towards Kamkunji. On Uhuru Highway, you're fine all the way through past Capital Centre, before you get to Uhuru Highway, past Capital Centre, getting to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, onto Uhuru Highway, and you're fine then into the CBD, out towards Westlands. Looks like Tuesday might just start off really right, and we'll try to keep it so. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on X as we keep things moving this Tuesday.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
Wonderful.
day.
Good morning to you and welcome to Tuesday. It's the 26th of September and here we are ready to knock things out of the park. How are you? Welcome. Karibu Sana Ndu here with you. CT Muga is here in a minute and we'll be able to say hello and get on with the day. Hope you're doing well. The sun is going to shine. Everything is going to be all right. And this is me being a daily dose of optimism. In it, just a number of conversations lined up today. It looks like it's going to be a good one. And already thanks for joining us. And there's the man himself, CT.
Yes, please.
Good morning, please.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
You're well, though.
I am well. Yesterday, I proved something. That this thing of saying yes is a greeting, it's an answer, it's a conjunction, it's information, it's everything at once.
It's an exclamation mark, it's an apostrophe. When I told you this the first time, what did you think?
I believed you, but I had to experience it for myself. That one of...
For you to believe it properly?
Yes, someone called me yesterday. Yes. I said... yes. Then he said yes. I said, okay, let's play this game. Since we're playing a game, and I like games, I said, yes. In his mind, he has communicated something to me. I said, look, brother, we can stay here all day. I don't have anything to do. We can continue this thing. So finally, he said, yeah, I got your request to pick up. I said, So now this is information that you could have shared by just saying a few more words than yes, clearly.
But he said yes, did he?
He did.
That's it. He had communicated.
In his mind. He had. How are you?
Very well.
I'm happy to see you.
Well, thank you very much.
I've got a song in my head. It's been in my head for a while. I played it this morning. I sang it last night. I woke up, I played it this morning, and I don't know. Maybe it's a sign of things to come.
But what's the song?
Leaving on a jet plane. Don't know when I'll be back again. Da 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 da. So kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you'll never let me go. Hey, I love that song.
And then I'm leaving
on a jet plane. Don't know when I'll be back again. Leaving. Yeah, so maybe I'm leaving.
On a jet plane? Well, at least it landed at the Standard Group this morning.
The plane landed at the Standard Group this morning. Yes, it did. And here we are. Kenya's biggest conversation. Ndu and Cici here with you this morning. And yes, I know you're going to ask me, and he will be back. Eric Latiff still on his sojourn of leave. He'll be back some days now. So worry not. All is well. And here we are. Okay. Interesting conversations lined up this morning as we do every day. And we're starting things off bright and early, out of the blocks, essentially, with conversations about helping individuals of low socioeconomic status to achieve free and fair trials. Very simply, that those who don't have a dime to their name, very difficult for them to be able to seek justice. Certain things need to be paid, court fees, bail, things like that. So what are some of these cases? How are people being helped? What can actually be done? We will be joined at 7 o'clock with two guests who will talk to us about that from the Justice Initiative. All right, at 8 o'clock, presidential term limits, the extension. Is it worth having a conversation? Absolutely it is. And I think we'll be interested to see that an economist and a member of parliament in the name of Dr. Makali Mulu, who is the member of parliament for Kitui Central, will be here at 8 o'clock as we have that conversation about extension of presidential term limits. And we'll again look at the cost of living and ask the question, what's in it for Kenyans? And finally, we're going to round things off at 9 o'clock with Vienna Mongare, who is a governance and political analyst. It's nice to have a female governance and political analyst for a change. And we'll be talking about impeachment as a solution for non-performance at whatever level. Is it actually the solution? So those are the things that we'll be looking at this morning, and we're glad that you're already with us today as we get into those. Our socials up, YouTube, Facebook, Spice FM, KE. Talk to us on X as well as we get into it this morning. How about we take a break and look at what's happening in the skies in Kenya and around the world, and then we'll come back, take a look at the headlines. Before we do that, we'll say hello to you, of course.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
Now, I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's petty, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
In Nairobi this morning, 14 and partly cloudy. We will see highs of 28 and lows of 15 today. Looking into Nakuru, 22 degrees will be the high and lows of 14, mostly cloudy conditions. Mostly cloudy at 14 in Nyeri, highs of 27 and lows of 14. And it's cloudy at 13 in Eldoret, highs of 23 and lows of 13. It's partly cloudy at 24 this morning in Mombasa, highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 30 as well. And a partly cloudy Malindi at 25. It's 19 and cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 29, and 28 will be the high in a partly cloudy Kakamega at 16. It's 18 and cloudy in Kampala, highs of 28 and lows of 17, and we'll see highs of 29 in a partly cloudy Dar es Salaam at 24. 7 degrees and partly cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 19, and we'll see highs of 30 in a mostly cloudy Lagos at 24. 24 and clear in Kinshasa, highs of 33 and lows of 22. Looking out into a partly cloudy Beijing Tuesday afternoon, we'll see highs of 27 and lows of 17. It's 13 and cloudy, cooling in Paris, highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 22 in a mostly cloudy London at 14. It's cloudy at 15 in New York Monday night. Coming into Tuesday, we'll see highs of 17 and lows of 14.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Hiya. All right. So it's 19 minutes after 6 o'clock. And now saying hello to you as we start off the day. Here we are. Good morning, James Sekento. He's tuned in from Kerara Pond today. Good morning, Kings and Queens. Kitengela Iko locked. Evans Nyangano says, looking forward to conversations today. And you're tuned in from Kajiado. Okay. Agri Momanyi says, good morning. Kenyans justify everything from the Bible. Now taxation has been justified by 1 Samuel 8, verse 5 to 18. Please, CT, do the honors of reading it. Okay. Meskia.
Which? Samuel?
1 Samuel 8, 1 Samuel 8, 15 to 18 is what we are seeing. Hi, CT and Ndu. Pleased to meet you in Malawi. We say Malawi Ndakowera. Every day we say Siku Lilonze. Ndolewera, CT and Ndu. Siku Lilonze on Spice FM. Pleased to meet CT and Ndu every day. Hey, okay. Wow. All right. So George Gashoiri says, good morning, Ndu and CT. Have a great day and a time in the morning. Good morning to you, Asante Sana. Job Jr. says, good morning, folks. JN catching up from Paramaribo in Suriname. How about that? Good morning, tuned in from Meru. That's Josegi. Julius Mushugu says, good morning, tuned in from Nairobi. Asubuhi Njema, good morning from Kansas. Thank you for the informative conversation. Good morning. Ednah greets everybody. I don't know if you see. Anthony Onyango says, good morning. It's chilly in Borabu. Good morning, everybody. Leshan Sanchez says, good morning from Kisumu. And we see Sylvester is here this morning. Good morning. Tune in. Looking forward to today's conversations. Project Justice, indeed. Robert Bogo says, good morning. Good morning from Carol Nyambura. Jamba Tvi says, good morning. And Virginia is also here. Monis Janef says, good morning. Specifically giving love to CT from Singapore.
Thank you.
Ahem. Mongera Nelson says, good morning, good people. James Mukamana says, good morning as well. Ndu NCT, good morning. Tuned in from Afi River. Desmond Oyu says, good morning. CT, what can you tell someone who has killed a mosquito?
Yeah, well, we can give you a title. Mosquito killer.
You can call him a mosquito killer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a guy. His name is Jeffrey Mogaka.
Mm-hmm.
He happens to be a friend to one Ednah Ombaso.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing what? Watching the show. So it is only us, our duty now, to welcome, very welcoming. Can you? Very,
yes.
How do they say? Give a serious clap, round of applause, those things that they say.
Welcome this person very much.
I'm telling you, Jeffrey Mogaka, good morning. Good morning, wonderful people. God bless you. Thank you very much. And to you too, from Mazeras. Kip Korea likes my song. I should sing more every day. He says Diani Beach is chilly. See, now I don't understand such things. I cannot reconcile.
Okay.
The beach is warm, it's humid. The area around the beach is also warm and humid. So when somebody tells me that they're feeling cold from a humid area, I have a bit of a problem.
It's climate change.
Me, I'm going through climate change, or them?
Both.
Both of us are going through
You are going through the climate change of trying to understand how a warm, temperate environment can be cold. One, winds blow even in warm temperate. Though you think the wind would be warm, not necessarily. But also, even these warm, temperate places, humid places, have their cold seasons.
C'est vrai. I agree. It's true.
And then with this climate change thing, the cold can get real cold. So that people who don't buy blankets now start buying blankets.
I see people wearing sweaters in humid areas. There are people who wear sweaters in Lagos, and I'm like, what's wrong?
See, the sweater they're wearing is theirs.
Sir, I've understood.
I need say no more on that subject.
We are good, please. Thanks. So Arthur Wanjama is asking, Ndu, is that you hinting that you'll be proceeding on leave soon? Well, I don't know. Teresia Madeka, Justice, good morning to you. We see you. Good morning, tuned in from Wasingishu. Okay, so many people online this morning. Azaria, we see you this morning.
Keep reading all their names. Make sure, keep reading all of them. Let them all be acknowledged.
Peter Ocheng, good morning. Moses Abuao, good morning. Amayo Keo, good morning. Batabet, we see you as well. Good morning. Azaria says, you know what? Why should we even have this kind of presidential term limit? We expect to be dropped from 5 years to 4 years, like some other countries. Sad to hear that they're thinking about going to 7. Victor says he can't miss this show every morning. Thanks, guys, for joining us this morning. Karibuni sana. As we get into it, we know that you'll be here with us as we move on. And as we do that, today's proverb from the land, this land is Kenya. So.
Roger Whittaker sang that song. And this land is Kenya. Right. Where there is no matata.
No matata. Sorry.
Funny person, you. Funny person. The water of the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty man. As I mentioned yesterday, I will not say specifically which community these proverbs come from. Now it's for people to figure it out and perhaps communicate and tell us, hey, by the way, in my community, we have a proverb that's similar to that one.
Oh, yeah, indeed.
Or something means the same as that one.
The water of a what?
Of the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty man. You're thirsty. You think river is going to wait for you? Keep thinking.
My friend, you better drink the water.
Yeah, you just
because
drink
it's
continuing.
When you take advantage of, rather grab an opportunity when you have it.
Like that.
Lest it goes.
Like that.
Me likey. Let's look at the headline, shall we?
It's a good thing.
All right. On the Standard. The Standard. Reading Uhuru's script. Can't seem to let this guy go, can we? A year after taking the reins of power, the Kenya Kwanza government is implementing projects it campaigned against, albeit with different names, including the BBI project that's been couched as bipartisan talks. Okay. So, now, bipartisan talks equals to BBI. Projects is equals to Uhuru's finishing, which you had said before we are not going to touch. So essentially what we are saying is that the Kenya Kwanza government is just an extension of the Uhuru government. That's what this headline is saying.
If you took that view, you wouldn't really be far off.
So, because there are other things, debt management, Kenya Kwanza honchos were on the all over the place, railing at Uhuru government for borrowing. However, 1 year later, appetite for debt has done what? It has grown. BBI, bipartisan talks, government is using the talks as a launch pad for constitutional changes. Some proposals done then are being returned. Huduma number, now it's no longer Huduma number, it is what? It's Maisha number. The court said the Huduma number has breached the law. The new Maisha number is supposed to be a game changer.
That's it.
The emperor, the champion, the lion, is game changer is here. Is Maisha number. Prime Minister's office, during campaigns, it was self-seeking to come up with the office, but now it is an idea government wants to enshrine in the law. So, different thing, different name.
What's
new
that?
Or same thing, different name.
What is this French thing?
Plus ça la change, plus la même chose.
That one, the même chose one.
Yeah, the more things change, the more they remain the same.
So this has mem chosed.
This has mem chosed. It's mem chosing properly. Hey.
Right.
All right. In other national news, review of grading to see universities admit more. So yesterday we did see the headline where private universities now are getting a full-on take in some of their courses because it is said that students would prefer a situation whereby even if they were to access credit for university funding, they would prefer that this was cheaper. So they don't like this thing and they want to, go back to. So this is interesting because now we'll see a review of grading, and that will mean that the score that you're required to have to get into university has been reviewed, so maybe it's not so tight, but we'll look at the details of that story. Farmers want the state control of maize prices to end. I don't know that they ever didn't, but now it seems that it's coming out in the open and they're saying, look, you guys control the prices, what's coming to us is very little. We cannot continue like this, so allow us to work in this particular space. Stay away from loans with interest, Muslims told. That's on page 14. And we look at those details. Let me take a look at the Daily Nation and on the front page. New KCSE grading boost for students. This is something we've seen as well in the Standard. New grading system to be implemented from this year and which is set to benefit over 5 million learners will reduce the number of compulsory subjects from 5 to 2, mathematics and one of the languages. This means more candidates are likely to score better grades and qualify to join tertiary in colleges. So now if they were looking at 5 courses previously on which it was pegged that your university admission happened, they will now look at 2, opening up spaces. I'm going nowhere, says Ryla. In case you thought that I was leaving on a jet plane, I'm not. He said, the day I decide to go back to Bondo, I will not ask for anyone's permission. I will find my way there. Certainly that time has not come. I am still here. So let them do what? Let them shut up. It's not me who said, it's there. It's there. All right, here's another story, and we'll look at this in detail. Suspect in Maigo murder case has been freed. A court has released the woman arrested in connection with the murder of Nairobi Hospital's finance director, Eric Maigo, after detectives failed to produce evidence linking her to the crime. Well, okay. What split Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says Mount Kenya leaders are united. What you people are seeing in terms of split, it does not exist. So leave it alone.
Sure. They don't exist, or they do exist?
They don't exist. There's no split. We're united, he said. The mountain is one. We're united.
Okay. If you say they don't exist, then they don't exist. By the same token, if you say it exists, isn't it?
Yes, please.
Yes. Like tigers in Kenya.
Cheetahs and leopards.
They are tigers.
They're all tigers.
Even lions.
Split, Kamwene, it's all Mount Kenya.
Same. It's on Mount Kenya. There's no split. Even giraffes.
Why not? After all, warthog inside. Yeah. Cherargei has been told he's on his own. UDA says this thing that you're talking about, term limits. That is, we uphold the constitution, we uphold the rule of law as the party, and but term limits, we're not interested. Well,
you know, this thing of upholding the rule of law, where then do you fit in constitutional changes? Because if you're talking law, you're talking constitution, you're talking constitutional changes, amendments to the law.
Right.
Bringing in new bills. What exactly are you saying?
That on this particular one,
the rule of law also establishes and allows you to change the law. Does it not? It does. Procedures have to be followed, but it's something you can do.
Indeed.
So when you say you want to maintain the rule of law, what exactly are you saying?
That we'll maintain the rule of law when it suits us.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
There's a time gone by, my dear, which I must mention to you. The gentleman called Daniel Arap Moi. He had 3 people whose job was to check with the verbal thermometer what the country was actually thinking or doing.
Yeah.
They'd come out and say something which on the surface would sound a bit outlandish. Then watch for reactions. Then you could say you have an idea. I do not think for a single second Cherargei just woke up one morning and decided to speak.
And said, I don't have anything to do. I'm bored today.
I do not
Senate scandal.
He knew exactly what he was saying. Temperature has been checked. Whatever knowledge was to be gleaned from it has been gleaned.
He's taken his vitamins for the day. He knew what he was saying.
Multivitamins. So he knows exactly. This conversation will come up again.
It will.
Just give it time.
We're going to be talking about it today and look at some of the merits and demerits of such a thing were it to happen. Because we cannot run away from the fact that it is a conversation in the minds of many. And perhaps it is palatable to them. Okay, so on the back page of The Nation, pending bills team set up without AG's nod. And okay, so remember, let's go back a little bit. Pending bills, and I'm going to go to a break in a bit after you give us headlines, what you have. But let me just go through this quickly. Pending bills, they said, okay, there are so many, getting to billions, right, that we owe. What we're going to do is we're going to set up a committee to now review and make sure that all these bills actually are authentic. And after that, we will then give, direction in terms of their payment. Now, the team that has been set up, they're saying now that that team is illegal because the Attorney General, in the name of one Justin Muturi, has not given his nod. So 2 things are happening. The team has not been set up. Number 2, the bills are still pending. All right, let's take a look at your headlines, CT, and then we take a break.
Right, let us look at the headlines. And the headlines in the Star. We are back to Till Green framework. Kenya and US signed defense pact on counterterrorism and technology. I thought we had one of these. So maybe we are signing another one. I guess you have to renew them from time to time, huh?
In it.
Right. Prepare for criticism, Ruto tells new DPP. There's a new director of public prosecution. He was given the nod and he now has the job. The gentleman's name is Renson Igonga. Okay. He was sworn in yesterday. He was told that he has told this gentleman that, my friend, this job of DPP, prepare. This job of yours, you will be criticized like nothing you've ever seen before in your life. It's me who said that. But what is it? Okay. Quote. What?
Nothing, please.
Court lenient on adopted woman who killed mom. Hey, God Almighty. How do adoptive parents let the children into the fact that they grow so that they can feel the craving of self-awareness and identity? Mishandling on information and failing to pass it right away turned tragic, like the case of BNG, who in fits of rage knifed the only mother she has ever known to death.
Wow.
Hey, God. Right, bang in the middle of the paper. Storm President, Storm, not Storm President, Storm,
Say which one is that one?
comma, President jets back to party infighting. No.
See, everybody's living on a jet plane. I'm telling you.
No, they're arriving on a jet plane. Oh, well, they left
somewhere.
Well, yes, okay. Yeah, now, party, it's not that he got it and there was a party. No. No, this is political party infighting and public outrage, okay? Ruto returns to squabbles and UDA turf wars. Discord pits senior ministry officials and political heavyweights. This is nothing new in politics. It happens all the time. It's jostling for power. Usually it's like a dark cloud. It forebodes something. We are being told that something is in the offing. When there's all this movement, something is actually happening.
It might rain or the cloud might pass.
It might pass, but the cloud will be there all the same. It might even drizzle a wee bit, okay? On the other hand, there may be a deluge. You do not know. But in this case, it's politicians doing what they do best.
Indeed.
Creating a storm in a teacup. Okay.
Wacha tuangalie mabarabara. Let's see what's going on traffic-wise, and then we'll come back and look at these stories in more detail. It's 24 minutes to the top of the hour. That is 7 o'clock. Coming back to look at the stories and the meat of it in a bit.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, Thika Superhighway coming in from Survey towards that Pangani underpass is where we're seeing the most of it right about now. It's going to come in from Outer Ring Junction, way past there, Githurai. It's slowly building up, but the service lanes are doing a fantastic job this morning of keeping traffic moving. And coming in from Outer Ring, we're not seeing too much of it. And that's because, yes, traffic is actually moving. And it's something we want to watch out for in a bit. We're probably going to see that pack up as we get closer to traffic hour. All right, Jogo Road doesn't look too bad right about now. We're also seeing some movement getting into the CBD coming off of Uhuru Highway, but we're doing all right with that. Westlands not looking too sticky here either. Langata Road is flowing freely, coming in from Magadi Road, touching on Bomas of Kenya, then out towards Langata Road. This we are fine. There's also a lot of movement on Uhuru Highway as you get towards Haile Selassie at the junction, but it's moving, so we're not seeing that just yet. How about we keep an eye on things and see how it opens up closer to traffic hour? Let's talk before then on Spice FM. KE on X.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
7 o'clock. Okay, I'm not quite sure. Peter Ocheng, what was your concern? Just repeat that for me so that I can have a look at that and then we can come through later. Sawa, just repeat that for me and tell me what it is so I can find it. Okay, let's look at some of these stories. Suspect in Maigo murder case freed. It's important for us to look at some of these things because you asked the question, by the time an arrest was made, what information actually fuels this? Okay. A court has released a woman arrested in connection with the murder of Nairobi Hospital Finance Director Eric Maigo after detectives failed to prove or rather provide evidence linking her to the crime. Ms. Cynthia Lusenga Andayo, alias Flora Akoth Okonda, who was carrying a baby in the dock, walked free after police told Milimani Senior Principal Magistrate Bernard Ochoi that they had found no evidence linking the suspect to the heinous and brutal murder of Maigo. According to the court, we acknowledge that the investigations conducted so far in this matter reveal that Lusenga was not involved in the matter. We ask you to close the investigation file against her and release her unconditionally, according to the lead investigator, Patrick Boge. And he told the court this crime scene and forensic analysis of her fingerprints and other evidence recovered from the crime scene did not reveal any link. So that's interesting that her fingerprints were at the crime scene, but there was no link between her and... It's just
why were her fingers at the crime scene?
Yeah, this is the question. Why were her fingers at the crime scene? Did she work there at some point? Was she there in connection? What was going on? So following this revelation, the magistrate said that there was no reason to keep her and released her unconditionally. She had been in custody for 5 days. She was arrested in Kibera on suspicion of being involved in the murder of Maigo. whose body was discovered in his Woodley home with 25 stab wounds. Police said that they were looking to arrest the main suspect whose images were captured on CCTV and circulated last week. So this particular individual whom they took pictures of, that we've seen the clothes of, etc., who they said to be between 15 and 17 years old, is still, quote unquote, on the run. And this one that they had arrested and kept for 5 days, they've said, actually, there's nothing to point us to her. So this whole thing is still tied up in knots in terms of what exactly happened. The manner in which this gentleman died, unfortunately, was quite grotesque. To find this individual and then being able to ask her the questions. There are many questions that are going to come out of this. If the suspect that they are looking for actually is involved in this, one has to ask very many questions. That why were they in the company of each other if she's actually under 18? What was going on?
Goodness gracious me.
Mm-hmm.
This particular saga raises more questions than it provides answers.
It does. Many questions.
Yes.
You know, what was she doing there?
Is, why was this person arrested in the first place?
Yeah. This one who's been let go, why were they arrested? Why were her fingerprints in the area? Was she, could they not have made the link? Did she come to clean Woodley and keep her not too far away? Was she a domestic worker? What was going on? Sharing this information for as public as this case has been made is vital for people to understand.
You've gotten to the heart of the matter. There are many things that are not being said. Who was this person? I understand if she was a worker, she would be one of the first people who would be brought in.
Yes. And that makes sense.
If the man had a driver, he'd also have been brought in. Because these are people who live in close proximity to a person who perhaps has engaged them. So, but this we're not being told. We're just told she was arrested.
And then she was let go.
From Kibra, now she's been let go. There's someone whose face was captured on CCTV being looked for. So, for now, we are as much in the dark as we were when this story first broke. Yes. The only change is now we now know someone was arrested and now they've been let go. That's it.
Yep. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Man, there are many stories in the Star. Many.
I'll start with one.
Right. I am not going to read any of these stories about... There's one that I found interesting. This is on page 8. Ruto flags off 100,000 health promoter kits. I found the headline interesting. Why is he flagging off kits? I thought he would flag off people. Anyway, President William Ruto on Monday flagged off 100,000 kits to be used by community health promoters in the counties. This sets the pace for the country's journey towards attainment of universal health coverage, with community health promoters as at the center of the response at community levels. The kit includes a backpack, first aid box, jacket, medium and large, weighing scale, infrared clinical thermometer, mid upper arm circumference tape. That is for pediatrics. There's a tape. Oh God, there's another tape here.
Inside the same box?
Yes, it's a MUAC tape for adults. The aim is to empower and equip community health promoters with essential tools to enhance healthcare access for healthier communities. I've read this article. I've read it. You know, this is promoting what you call the preventative health.
Yeah.
Yes.
Indeed.
This is the promotion of preventative health care, and it is a good thing.
It's very good. We talk about CHPs and what they can actually do to make sure that people are aware of certain things before they have to actually present at hospital. And if these kits are going into the hands of CHPs, and I would be very happy to... Is that what it said? That these kits being flagged off going into the hands of CHPs?
Yes. Okay. The thing is, though, that story is incomplete. If the health facilities to which these individuals are supposed to refer people to are not furnished with the relevant commodities, the personnel who will make it possible for them to receive treatment. Because at the community level, yes, you may be able to diagnose. You may be able to determine what the problem is. But they are community health workers. No, they are voluntary community health workers, which means they are lay people. There are things they will not be able to handle beyond diagnosing. So now, the story about the next step, where you refer them to, the clinic in the area, okay? The health center in the area before you take them to what you may refer to as a hospital.
Right.
Okay. These are in place, have to be in place. If they're not in place, everything that we're doing here will be shortchanged.
Oh, it's counterintuitive.
Yes, you'll be able to provide a service, but you won't be able to complete everything that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Remember, this in many ways is the culmination of a process that was started some way back in the year 2012, when, should we say, the proof of this particular pudding was being prepared. It's called community strategy.
Yeah.
Trying to determine whether it is that lay workers can actually provide the necessary backup for preventative healthcare within communities. And that proof was proved.
That they can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The findings were that it is possible. It was possible because, again, the measure was the reduction in hospital attendance by people. Meaning, before someone rushes to a hospital, they can be taken care of in a clinic.
Sure.
They can be taken care of in a health center. Something like that. So, good. Now, let's see how it works.
I'd love to see how it works,
Let's see
because
if the
this has
support
been the
system
bane.
that it requires is also in place.
Indeed.
Yes.
Okay, so Peter Ochieng, your concern is now directly linked to the next story that we're going to look at. Invite MOE officials to shed light on funding of secondary schools. Right, in terms of what is going to happen, capitation that we know has been increased at some level. That's happening. It would be nice to have the ministry here. It's something that we've been working on. We'll actually get that in, and we'll see when that could happen. So there are many things that are going on with education right now. In a month or so, KCPE, KPSEA exams will start on the same day. That's the 30th of October. Then we will see a few days after that, the KCSE will be sat. And we're also seeing at the same time that university funding, the questions still abound. Now, when we look at KCSE and what happens after the exam, results are out, more than 5 million students will benefit from a new grading system in the KCSE examinations that will leave out subjects that are not strong. Sorry, let me do that again. That will leave out subjects they are not strong at and only consider their best grades in the final score. So if you're strong at a particular subject, then you have the choice of picking your 2 strongest subjects, and that will then amount to your score. So we know that right now what happens is that a mean is taken, right? And that's what gives you your final score. An average is what gives you your final score. And it takes the average of all the subjects you've written the exam in and gives you that final score. What they're saying now is that they will take your strongest subjects, the ones that you scored highly, and they will take the mean of those. And they're saying what this does, the new system announced yesterday by Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Mashogu, reduces the number of compulsory subjects from 5 to 2. Candidates' mean grades will be calculated based on 2 compulsory subjects, mathematics and 1 language. So that could be English, Kiswahili, or the Kenya Sign Language, and 5 other best performed subjects. So you have a chance to get your average from how well you perform and not what is compulsory for you to do. The previous system considered 5 compulsory subjects in English, Kiswahili, mathematics, and 2 science subjects and 2 humanities, which disadvantaged some learners whose best performing subjects were not considered if they did not fall within the stated formula. So what this does inevitably is that it opens the bracket for more students to be called into university. Mashogu was speaking when he launched the 2023 examination session at the Kenya National Examinations Council headquarters in Nairobi. This will be very interesting. And yes, there are very many issues that the Ministry of Education will be invited to discuss, and we'll try to open that up a little more. So Peter Ochieng, we hear you, but look at that story. I think that one is interesting, giving more opportunities to go to tertiary institutions and secondary as well. Sawa, let me tell you
a story.
Another story.
Happy story.
Happy story, yo.
Mm-hmm.
UDA has disowned Senator Cherargei in term limit debates. They've said, excuse me. Again, there's the headline, the rule of law. President William Ruto's United Democratic Alliance party has thrown Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei under the what?
Bus.
Under the bus. Distancing itself from his proposal to increase presidential term limits. We're not doing like that. UDA Secretary General Cleophas Malala said that the debate was superfluous and peripheral.
Thank you.
And squarely perpendicular.
It was superfluously peripheral.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And when Eric comes back, we must ask him to say those two words in rapid succession together. Maintaining that the party's focus was on delivering on its manifesto. That is what we are doing. All this business that you people are here talking about, increase the term limit in order for us to... We had a manifesto. We told Kenyans what we're going to do. We are going to deliver on it. So don't bring us this peripheral superfluosity. A few days ago, Cherargei presented a memorandum to the National Dialogue Committee at the Bomas of Kenya, seeking to amend the constitution to extend the presidential term limit from 5 to 7 years before the next election. The suggestions drew sharp reactions from across the political divide, with critics terming it a ploy to introduce president for life in the near future. So you start with 7 years, then you go to 10, and after some time you say, let it be an open-ended term. People were saying, you know what, you guys are just opening the door, and it's just a crack, but soon we'll see this door being flung wide open, and we're not here for it. While opposition leaders felt the move could have been sanctioned by the president himself, vowing to shoot it down at all costs, some UDA leaders have maintained it had nothing to do with State House and that it is ill-advised. And in a statement, Malala reiterated the position, saying the proposal is solely an individual's initiative. Okay, look, it's an individual's initiative. Maybe he was pushing for his guy. But we'll have that discussion today. And
there is no greater indication than that is something they kicked off. Cherargei was one who was asked to bell the cat. And this cat hasn't gone anywhere.
It's not meowing.
No. Believe me, this one, the debate has merely just begun.
It's not about to be chucked out the window, this one.
No. She's not going to happen.
She's not going to happen.
No.
Okay, so tell us another story, Bas.
Yes, employers' headache as pay deductions cross 2/3. Interesting story. The Employment Act 2007 prohibits employers from deducting more than 2/3 of basic pay of an employee to safeguard their rightful gains from employment. However, most salaried workers with pre-existing loan repayments obligations have in recent months seen their take-home pay shrink past the legally recommended levels after statutory tax deductions, presenting a compliance headache for employers and financial institutions. These new taxes have broken the law.
Okay, hold on, CT. I like how 1 + 1 for you equals 75. But how about you go back and explain that a little bit more? Sorry?
When you take a loan, the deductions that are supposed to be made in order to repay the loan must never be beyond 2/3
of what
salary.
you take.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, right.
But now with these new taxes, if somebody already had a loan and that 2/3 rule had been applied, the new taxes now ensure that cannot be the case, because by the time they deduct, you'll find that more money has left your purse and it goes beyond that 2/3 range. That is why I was saying they have broken the law.
Because the law of Kenya is actually what states that.
Yes. And these taxes have guaranteed that law has gone foop. Yeah, that's where it's gone.
It's gone foop. Okay.
Gone kabisa. Now, this is something that they are going to have to deal with. Okay? Workers take home pay shrink from taxes and levies. Distressed employees cutting on SACCO's bank savings. So essentially, even the monies that banks tend to have, and which is what they use for lending to others, which are deposited to them, has shrunk. SACCOs, same thing, which means people are also reorganizing what they're paying the SACCOs. This also means that what you are repaying, everything about this means that this 2/3 rule is going to be abrogated. That's what it means.
It is.
And simply because we have new taxes.
But wait, There's so many things happening that essentially mean that the law is being broken.
Yes, it is.
Over and over. The Constitution, the law.
This is a consequence, yes.
Many things happening, and we're just looking at it. Law is being broken. All right, so what? How can we do it again another day? And there's yet another one where this is happening. Pending bills. We saw this last year. Actually, no, a few months ago. And they said, you know what? Pending bills. All of you are saying that we owe you. Wait, we're setting up a committee that's going to look at these pending bills, comb through them one by one, fine-tooth comb. After we have done a verification, gone through the process of verification, then we will come and say, actually, you know what? Yes, CT, we owe you 2 billion, or you, we owe you 10,000, or you, we don't owe you at all. In fact, you, we paid you already, so, get out of here. Now, this committee that's supposed to have been set up in order to verify these things, AG is saying, oh, I didn't say go ahead, so, task forces appointed by county governments to audit pending bills without the approval of the Auditor General are unconstitutional, according to the High Court.
Man.
Yeah.
And
so not AG, not Attorney General, AG Auditor General. So I beg your pardon. In a precedent-setting decision, Justice Anthony Mrema, in fine form, once again, ruled that the appointment of task forces to carry out audits is an outright usurpation of the constitutional and legislative duty and powers of the Auditor General.
Usurpment.
Yes, thank you. This one, they said usurpation.
Well, yeah, I'm just adding
usurpment. You like usurpment? Okay, let's use usurpment. And they've said that the powers of the Auditor General then have been what? They've been abrogated. The county's internal audit office as well as the audit committee. You can't just come here and start setting up task forces to do your thing. No, then why do you have the Auditor General? You have an Auditor General for a use and purpose. Let them be the ones to do that. Several governors, including James Orengo from Siaya, George Natembeya, Trans Nzoia, last year appointed task forces to carry out audits in the respective counties, which came up with far-reaching recommendations. Both task forces were chaired by former Auditor General Edward Okoh. Justice Mrema, however, ruled where a governor wishes to have the audit undertaken by another qualified auditor other than the Auditor General, the request should be made to the same Auditor General to either outsource the service under Section 23 of the Public Audit Act or to seek professional assistance and consultancy under Section 24 of the same Act. So, number one, this is the Auditor General's job to audit and make sure that all the money that is said to have been owed by yourselves is actually done. Should you want somebody else to do it, you must go to the same Auditor General and say, please allow us to ask somebody else apart from yourself to come and audit the county's audits. If you don't do that, according to what they've said, what you're doing is illegal, it is unlawful, you must stop it. Now, Justice Mrema has basically said all these task forces that you people have set up, they actually have no mandate. If you want this thing to be sorted out, go to the Auditor General. But guess what is happening in the meantime? Pending bills are still not being paid.
Not only that, pending bills are increasing. This is according to the budget controller, Margaret Nyakango. It says they increased by 11 billion in 1 year to June. Pending bills, let me read it, by counties rose by 11.74 billion in the year ended June. June this year, sinking the private sector deeper into cash flow woes. Data from Control of Budget show that pending bills hit 164.76 billion in the year compared to 153.02 billion in the period ending June 2022. The spike highlights the mounting cash flow woes on contractors and firms that did business with the devolved units, with dozens being forced to shut down, tap loans, or cut down, or even commit suicide. That Ramdan who just added. Okay.
Today you're on ad-lib mode, eh?
Yes.
Okay. So,
for some people who've been hospitalized and who've died as a result of this. You see, what I always find strange is that you have pending bills, but the money that was supposed to be used to pay them doesn't also exist. And it didn't pay them. So where did it go?
Where did the money go?
Is this not, simple 1 + 1 here, or 1 - 1. It's supposed to be 0, isn't it? Yeah, but this one, it's minus.
It's minus something.
Yes, it's supposed to be 1 - 1, but this one, it's negative, something like around 20. So how does this maths work?
This one is not working.
No, I actually don't think it works. It doesn't matter how you twist it, but
if math is not mathing needed a scenario, it is this one.
Yes.
All right.
And the beat goes on.
It indeed does. All right, we're coming close to 7 o'clock. We're going to come back after 7 and go into a conversation about, all right, for those who can't afford it, how do they get justice? Okay, it's 7 a.m. Back after this.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The Social Health Insurance Bill is set to be tabled in Parliament following the conclusion of public participation. The bill is among a raft of pieces of legislation that the executive hopes will be enacted ahead of the launch of the Universal Healthcare Program next month. The Social Health Insurance Bill establishes the Social Health Insurance Fund that will take over from the National Hospital Insurance Fund, and its implementation could see Kenyans pay more in taxes to finance the provision of health services envisioned under the Act.
I request you, members, to work with us to expedite the legislations that we have put in place so that we can make sure that this program is anchored in law. We are also starting the journey to register every household in Kenya so that we can have the information on the health requirements, on the health condition, on the prevalence of whatever diseases in every part of Kenya.
These as legislators from both houses promised to expedite the bill in a bid to achieve the universal health coverage.
Kule bunge tuko na malizia mambo ya public hearings. We shall table the bills pamoja na ile ya digital health bill ambaye itahakisha kwamba yale mnafanya kule mashinani, agency ambayo itahusika naye itaweza kuyaweka katika health information system yetu.
Tuko na primary healthcare bill ambayo pia tunashughulikia na tunajua ndani ya wiki moja tutakuwa tumeweza kupitisha kama bunge la seneti.
The laws that have been proposed, which have had very comprehensive consultation, are going to make sure that we have a uniformity in the whole of Kenya, where there is a CHV from Tharaka Nithi, Turkana, Mombasa. They are going to operate under the same standards.
The Horn of Africa countries are affected by climate change. Now, speaking in Nairobi, Chief Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi pointed out that from time to time, countries in the Horn of Africa have been witnessing various disasters resulting from climate change, such as drought and floods.
There is no year or season in which the whole region receives normal rainfall and is free from climatic anomalies, such as flood or drought. We are just emerging from the worst drought in 40 years. We are expecting El Nino after a dry spell, enough cereal dryers to go around and save on post-harvest losses. Meanwhile, we must prepare for floods. Infrastructure will be destroyed, as we have seen sadly in Libya. By now, you must have realized.
Mudavadi has also asked the developed countries to develop policies that will be used to solve the challenges facing various countries in Africa.
In the face of climate change, we call upon the world community to rethink the definition of global food security for regions like the Horn of Africa, which is perennially in the throes of recurrent droughts, pest infestations, and inconsistent rainfall. Only place substantial pressure on food production, affecting the livelihoods of millions dependent on farming, but fundamentally distorts planned economic growth paths of affected countries. Indeed, for countries like Kenya, achieving food security is not merely about increasing food production.
Mudavadi said this at the launch of the World Food Programme funding system in Nairobi, and Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says the government is working to ensure that the country is fully prepared to handle El Nino and other emergencies that might arise.
Humanitarian agencies like Red Cross, international organizations, our development partners, and most important, all the 47 county governors, because in one way or another, they'll have to work with the national government to deal with the various challenges that will come with El Nino. The governor, Nairobi, is very critical. There are drainage challenges in this city and other cities of Mombasa, Eldoret, Nakuru that we need to prepare. We need to work together between the national government and the county government, so that as a country we prepare for the challenges that will come with El Nino.
Now, the Minister of Education has unveiled the new grading structure set to be implemented in the 2023 KCSE examination. Education CS Ezekiel Machogu said the proposal to use only 2 mandatory subjects was guided by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms. Machogu said the new reform measure is expected to increase the number of students qualifying for higher education learning. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, coming after 7 o'clock, and we're looking at traffic really having built on the Thika Superhighway. Coming in from that outer ring junction, it's heavy coming in from Githurai, and now is when we can say we're in traffic hour proper. There's traffic also coming off of Limuru Road. There's some of it coming off of Kiambu Road, and so all of this is joining. Limuru Road from the back comes on out towards Kiambu Road, and then we're looking at going towards the Pangani Underpass. Traffic coming towards the 20 corner there from Muthaiga Square. Also coming out of Westlands, it's really busy as well. Traffic then coming on to Huru Highway, Jogoo Road, touching on Landis, and then out towards Kamkunji. It's a busy morning, and we're seeing that happening right about now. There's also a lot of movement coming in from Cabanas going towards the North Airport Road, and then it'll touch on Outer Ring at the junction, then out towards the Eastern Bypass. So everywhere you look this morning, it's pretty busy. We're going to keep an eye on things and see how this opens up closer to the start of traffic hour proper. Let's talk on Spice FM KE on X.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
Indeed it is. 7 minutes after 7 o'clock. Greetings from Uganda. Julius Mashamerewa says, good morning, Sebo. Good morning to you too. And welcome. Kenya's biggest conversation gets into its second hour this morning. And we're having a conversation about access to justice for those who can't afford it, and those who are on a lower socioeconomic scale. How are they actually getting this, and what can actually be done? And it's a serious issue, apparently. Our guests for this hour are already seated, and we're going to say hello to them in just a bit and welcome them. Welcome to our audiences on KTN News and KTN Home this morning. Thank you for joining us on the Situation Room. All right, let me tell you about Kenya's biggest single-day athletics event. It's taking place on the 29th of October. And your question is, what's that? Well, that is the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. CT will be running. I'll also be running. We will register because we have not yet. That's the truth. We will. NairobiMarathon.com. If you want to know how to register, log on to NairobiMarathon.com, and the 2,000 shillings registration helps you get all the paraphernalia you need to be able to register for this race. And then come the 29th of October, kicking off from Uhuru Gardens, we run for a good cause. It's a special one because it's a 20th edition, 20 years of making an impact. And what is the impact that I'm talking about this particular year? Future Makers program is the benefactor of these proceeds, and it's making sure that young people, especially girls and people with disability, have the opportunity to learn, earn, and grow. It's the Nairobi Standard Chartered Marathon. Log on today and get into it. All right, this hour, we're having a conversation, like I said, about access to justice for those who are low on the socio-economic scale. And joining us for that conversation this morning, Jockey Maina Gitao is the lead stakeholder engagement at the Project Justice Initiative. Good morning to you, Jockey.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Hosea Jabez, we had a minute going through your name and talking about, you're prophetic in nature. So, hey, let's see what that's all about today. You are the founder of the Project Justice Initiative, and it's happy to have you here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana. So, do we call you Hosea or Jabez? Which one now do we go with?
Jabez.
We like Jabez because the prayer of Jabez is also one that actually can be, applied in this situation that we talk about this morning, isn't it? Yes. But before I get philosophical, how about CT gives us and welcomes you today with today's proverb?
There is a country in East Africa that the two of you may have heard of. Our proverbs are taken from countries all over this continent. So this week we're in East Africa. Take a guess. Which country do you think the proverbs are from this week?
Kenya.
That's your guess? You?
I'd say Uganda.
Very good. Kenya's next to Uganda, but the proverbs are from Kenya. For our listeners who do not know where Kenya is, it's on the east coast of Africa, former British colony. The capital is Nairobi. The financial capital is Nairobi. The administrative capital is Nairobi. Yes, that's Kenya for you. Yes. We have a presidential system. We have a president, a deputy president, and then we mixed up a little bit. We have a prime cabinet secretary. Don't find it in the constitution, but we have it. We understand that the constitution can be expanded from time to time to suit our purposes. That's Kenya for you. Okay? Now the proverb for the day. The water of the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty man. Okay, let me repeat it slowly.
Okay.
The water of the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty man.
Jabez.
Yes.
What do you think about that? What does that mean to you? What do you hear?
I think to me it means opportunities go and don't wait for anyone, despite the fact that you really need that opportunity.
What about you, Jockey?
I think, added on to what Jabez has said, you may be having a need because, like CT has mentioned, you may be thirsty. But if you don't have the necessary tools, then the opportunities will still pass you by.
Ndu is going to ask me to give you a score on a scale of 1 to 10.
Or a million,
Yes, but in this case, the two of you get 11.
Okay.
It's good, no? It's like, what is that? 101%? Okay. It's possible. All right. Looking at some impossibilities this morning and, helping individuals of low socioeconomic status to achieve free and fair trials. So when we talk about help, that means that there's a problem, isn't it?
Yes.
So if we're looking at this broadly, before we start to get into the details, what's the landscape? Paint a picture of what we're looking at here. If we're saying that these folks need help, there's a large number of people. Is it a few cases that we see every now and then? Paint a picture for us, Jabez, of what exactly is the situation when it comes to people of low socioeconomic status accessing free and fair trials.
Okay, thank you. Now, to the best of our knowledge, based on the cases we deal with on a daily basis, it's almost 80% of people who face criminal cases, who are poor, are unable to have effective representation.
Repeat that again, please.
About 80% of the people who face criminal charges in court are unable to get effective, fair representation in that process.
That's in Kenya?
Yes. Okay. And especially when you're looking at it against the party they're litigating. Because when you talk about criminal offenses, you're litigating against the government. So the government is a buffalo. They're coming to you when they're charging you with something. They've done a lot before that prosecutor stands in front of you, there's an investigator behind him. There is a scientist behind him. There's a ballistic expert behind him. Now, when you're defending yourself, and especially if you don't have money, you have a lawyer working on pro bono. Yeah? He's probably unmotivated. He's probably unaware. Yeah? So even if he could be motivated, he does not have the resources to get proper investigators to counter what the accusations are. He does not have resources to engage forensic scientists. So that is what we do, and that's how we got into this.
Okay, so Njoki, what's free and fair? When you talk about a trial being free and fair, who deems it free and fair, and what are the characteristics of a free and fair trial?
It's interesting that in our country, the onus of proving how innocent or guilty you are rests heavily on the accused more than it does on the law enforcement. Ideally, the way Jabez has said, for instance, this is a criminal offense that we're talking about, yeah? They should be able to give all the evidence, adduce everything that pertains to the trial. So, but if I don't have the resources to also have my own investigation, right, counter to what they are doing, then the entire case rests on what they deliver. So therein lies the question, who, the way you've asked, who determines, right? And so if they have the resources, then they are the determinants.
It's like starting a game, and they say, okay, this is going to be a fair game, but this team starts with 2 goals.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
But it's fair.
But it's fair. But you start with 0. So they're ahead. Even as you start, they're already ahead of you.
So if we're coloring it within the lines of justice here, and because at the end of the day, it is a judge who will adjudicate, who will decide the case. Are we saying now that judges are deciding cases whereby they already see this disadvantage? They're fully aware of the disadvantage of these individuals to hire lawyer, forensic expert, etc., knowing full well that they did not even get up.
Still need to remain as neutral and examine only the facts that you're able to bring in front of them. In fact, a judge should not be appearing to be assisting either party with their case. And therefore, it is important, or it becomes imperative, that when we're talking about effective, as per the Constitution, is it actually effective if I cannot afford it? Even if I could afford it, I do not have a reach to the expert. For example, how many forensic scientists are out here? Personally, I'm a forensic scientist. How many forensic scientists are out here trying to give their input into defense?
What you raise has many facets to it. It's a philosophical question, but then it's also extraterrestrial. I'm going to explain why I'm calling it extraterrestrial. Because it's like you have a situation that involves real people and real situations, and then the theater of the absurd comes in, and the decks are stacked against certain individuals again from the get-go. And yet, the understanding from our justice system is that because it has gone to court, then we call it fair.
Fair, yeah.
When everything leading up to the point where you have taken it to court is actually unfair. Now, even as we say that judges only deal with the information that is before them, okay, surely, are you saying that judges are not able to question and ask? They do probe into the evidence that is given, but simply by observing and looking at how something is being presented. Let me give the explanation why I'm saying this. I am told that one is advised not to be their own advocate. And I'm told that even members of the bench will caution you and tell you that perhaps you should get legal advice. It is unwise. So now, if I were to take that particular case, that's them intervening because they understand that you are probably not adequately equipped to do that. So we remove that, And so you then say that if by virtue of someone having studied law and having been certified as a lawyer, and they are presented to you, and you know full well it's a pro bono case, the unfairness cannot be adduced or cannot be mentioned simply because, in all fairness, the judge simply has to deal with what is brought before him or her.
Yeah, to this extent, yes, that a judge cannot or should not be appearing to be pushing or aiding one party to the detriment of the other party, just because you are well prepared. For example, if it is for somebody who's affluent, yeah, they have the resources and they're litigating against the government, and the prosecutor is not capable, yeah, the investigation was not well done. The judge can also now, then we can argue and say, I think you're guilty. Based on the information I'm having, I think you're guilty then. Let me aid the government to go relook at this. Yeah? Or ask the government, you guys you forgot to call this witness, which will help pin this guy down. They will keep quiet, even if they know the prosecution has failed to produce this, which probably could be in their possession.
What they tend to do is throw out cases. Based on they throw out cases, say this case.
No premise.
Yes, there's nothing we are adjudicating here.
Yes.
So go away. Maybe that's the best they can do. Look, I think I didn't explain my point well. You see, I have this thing at the back of my mind and it's bothering me. Let me tell you why it's bothering me. I'm thinking of, say, the remand prison. And I'm thinking of the very many petty offenders who are there. Now, the judges have the ability to actually look and realize this person doesn't have to go back to remand. Our judicial system allows them. There are ways in which you can actually make that person pay for the alleged crime or whatever it is. But instead, they are sent. There are people who have cases pending, but they are still in jail. Now, are these the sort of people that you're talking about?
The people who are still in jail.
You are in jail. You are supposed to, you're told, pay a fine or do the other, isn't it? You don't have the fine. Dani.
Okay. That's not exactly the people we are talking about.
Who are you talking about?
We are talking about people who have been charged for particular offenses, and they have a counter narrative of what happened. But they are not able to present those facts in court because of limited resources and limited access to specialized services that are required that the government has.
Okay, so what kind of, circumstance are we talking about here? Paint the picture for us. Somebody's accused of what? Theft.
Sorry, if I may, I think there is something I want to put back. The category that you're also highlighting could fall into who we look into, because you've been accused. You have a totally different narrative. What they have against you is circumstantial at best. So now you can't raise the bail, or you can't come up with the amount, right? So you're in remand. And yes, so to speak, those are people that we could also look into, because they have a different story other than what is being given of them.
The worst part of this story is that some people are in remand and they're forgotten. It's actually forgotten that you're in there. Case in point, there are many times when people were arrested in the COVID era because you're found walking past curfew. You'll be arrested, arraigned in court, in remand. Now, cases arise every day. Unless somebody bothers to look, you will stay there.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is the question that we're asking here, because, we started this off with where is the problem? And we say that quite a number of people who go through the annals of the system don't have the resources required to be able to prove their case. So we're not talking about paying bail here. We're not talking about, putting up a bond. We're not talking about paying a fine. We're talking about, so because it's a criminal case, we're talking about you don't have the resources, monetary or otherwise, to prove your case, whether you are innocent or not, or you want to prove that certain kind of evidence was available. So what kinds of things are we talking about here? If somebody's accusing you of what?
Rape, for example.
And they want to say that particular DNA was found on a victim's body, and then this can be attached to person X. Now, person X is arrested, all right? Person X is brought to court. Person X would like to prove that actually on that day, they were not there. And the prosecution is riding on witness statement that actually it was person X who raped me. Right?
Yes.
Person X says, actually, I was not there, and I can prove that because I was in a hotel and I happen to have brushed my teeth. But I cannot prove that because I don't have the resources. Is that the kind of thing that we're talking about here? Yes. So give us an example of how this would play out and what would happen in court, and what happens to this individual if they cannot plead their case.
Let me take that one.
Okay.
What would happen in, let's take the first case scenario, you do not have the means. So what you're going to go, you're going to say, I did not do it. I'd like you guys to believe me, I did not do it. For example, there's the lady who was being raped, and another witness who saw you go into the house, yeah? So that, of course, rape, you must not have a witness seeing you doing it, yeah? Now, there is that. Now, you cannot prove, okay, fine, probably you were there. But you did not do it. Now, how do you prove that beyond that? In your own words.
Beyond your words.
There's nothing. So that is the first aspect. But then the second aspect, DNA was done on the semen that was on the samples that were collected from there. How was it processed? How did the government experts sequence this? Yeah. There is a popular case that I know that affected a politician some time back, where there was an allegation that they had a baby with somebody, but then there's also an allegation that his son, also had an affair with the same woman that probably led into the problem. Now, for example, in such a case, the expert, how they do the DNA identification for that case, where brothers or a father and a son are being accused of paternity, it's different from if CT and myself are being accused to be fathers. They required isolation for analysis in cases where they are brothers, in cases where they are brothers, is different. So if you do not understand that, you will not defend yourself. But then to answer the question for your case would be, we've done a case where somebody was accused of defiling a young person.
A minor.
Yes. And the minor explained how it happened. Yeah. And the minor says, luckily
how young was this minor? How old was this minor?
Was about 14.
Okay.
And they said the person had sent them for cigarettes, and when they brought back the cigarettes, they defiled them using their hands. And they did it in the bedroom or something like that. They did it in the sitting room. Yeah. In the course of our looking into that case, we realized this man had a wife who was sick, cannot walk, yeah? So she's in the house throughout. We also realized the house they live in is a one-roomed house. Now, what the prosecution did not know, they actually even didn't go to see the scene.
They did not go to the supposed scene of crime.
Yes. Now, when you look at the factors vis-a-vis the allegation that this was done in the sitting room, and the wife was in the other room. When you visit that house,
it's one room.
It is one room. Kitanda iko pale kando, kiti iko hapa. You see, and now the reason now again, if you look at what would motivate a 13-year-old to lie, yeah, you come to realize it is a teacher who raised this issue with the child, because the child was not doing very well. This child was late at school, so when they were narrowed down and asked, there must be something wrong. Yeah, the child just came up with
narrative.
Yes, that this has happened to me, and is why. And then the teacher also took it very quickly, took it to the police station. They did that. The other problem is, for example, medical examination.
Just let me pause for a second. Was this child known to the accused?
Yes.
They were neighbors?
Yes, even the granddaughter of that person and this child play together.
Go on.
Yes, yeah. So when this child was questioned at school why there's this sudden change of behavior. And then, because also there are kind of awareness that children are brought into, like if somebody did this to you, kindly don't fear, just bring it up, Sometimes there's that possibility that somebody thinks that is what you want to hear, Why are you not performing well? Why are you struggling? Is somebody doing anything to you? But because probably you are late for your own reason or this, you just see something. Now let me talk about, for example, medical examination. Post-rape examination requires that the victim, the nature of injuries are examined. Our Kenyan doctors fail to do an examination that is consistent with the international best practice for post-assault examination.
How is that?
Now, if you are to collect today a PM form, a P3 and a post-rape examination form, you'll realize how they describe a wound, When there's penetration, they do not age it, So that, for example, to say this is a 3 days old wound, that is something that they should be capable of telling you. So that they tell you this is a 1 week old injury, this injury is consistent with penile penetration. This is consistent with other form of nini. Now, and this also affects some police stations or police officers. They quickly forget the clothing, And you see all of these things together. Actually, as we think,
clothing that the
victim was
the alleged victim was
wearing. Yes. Even if by the time it's coming to you, they had removed it, it is still good to collect it because it could still be having a lot of informational value to a case. And we think as an initiative that even by us trying to criticize or critique the processes that go into these litigation processes, it helps improve their practice. Because if you're examining me if I'm a victim, and then you fail to do all of these processes, all of these procedures, then you're doing injustice to me by making it impossible for me to prove my case.
Okay. This is heavy stuff. Let's take a break at this point, come back and then look at, all right, so then how are folks who don't have those resources being helped? How should they be helped? Because if you're going to ask if a rape kit is not administered, how then do you then prove that I am the person who did this or didn't? And that's a big question. All right, 28 minutes to 7 o'clock. We'll take a break, look at traffic and weather. I'm going to tell you about the Employer of the Year Awards, and they're back. It's an initiative of the Federation of Kenya Employers, and it seeks to vet organizations that put people at the core of their business and looks at those who've implemented policies, those who've implemented systems and processes that create and sustain enterprise competitiveness. So, these awards create a platform for identifying, recognizing, and promoting excellence in corporate performance, people management, and labor relations, and they're back this year. Any member who wishes to be recognized as exercising the best labor practices can join. So many award categories. All employers are welcome to participate by contacting the federations. It's www.fke-kenya.org. Register today. The awards come up on the 6th of October, and you can find out how you can participate and attend those awards, and never know, you could win. Coming back right after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If a lion shows you its teeth, it doesn't mean it likes you.
It doesn't mean it likes you. It wants start. A liar calls as witness one who is either dead or far away. Say it in
Ben low, nin inte, yenin there, ayu markati kadikta. You know this character called liar. He has disturbed people. So when you tell him, who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats a lot, I cannot survive there. Sweating is biblical. Good. And you must blame it on Adam, not me. Because Adam messed up and he was told, now you fellow you, by the sweat of your brow, thou shalt eat.
The Situation Room Kenya's biggest conversation.
Sunny conditions in some parts of Nairobi, mostly cloudy though. We'll see highs of 27, back down to lows of 14. It's sunny at 14 in Nakuru, highs of 26 and lows of 14, and 15 and sunny in Nyeri with highs of 27. It's 13 and cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 23, and at 25 we'll see sunny conditions in Mombasa. It's sunny at 26 in Malindi and 20 and mostly cloudy in Kisumu. It's 18 and cloudy in Kakamega. It'll go to highs of 28, and at 18 it's sunny in Kampala with highs of 28, sunny at 25 in Dar es Salaam with highs of 29, 7 degrees and mostly cloudy in Johannesburg with highs of 19, and it's cloudy at 24 in Lagos going to highs of 30. Clear conditions at 23 in Kinshasa with highs of 33. We'll see lows of 23.
Spice up your life.
All right, it's a busy morning and it's coming off of Uhuru Highway. You're going to get past Capital Centre at some point, don't worry. The Southern Bypass will let you get out into the city much quicker using Langata Road and then coming into the CBD. You don't want to do that, then you can stick on Uhuru Highway as you're getting into the city. It's going to slow you down a bit as you touch on your junctions, but this doesn't look too messy, at least not for now. It's moving traffic, so we should be all right. Where it does look like a bumper-to-bumper situation is on the Thika Superhighway, and you're coming in past that Pangani underpass, and it's going to hold you there for some time. There's also some traffic coming off of Kiambu Road. I don't even know how many lanes we're at right now, but it's bumper to bumper, and it's slow. Also coming out of Westlands, there's movement going towards Chiromo, so let's watch out for that as you're trying to get into the CBD, coming round what was the Westlands roundabout, going towards that expressway exit. We're in traffic hour, folks. Let's see how Tuesday pans out. Talk to us about where you might get stuck, or if you find a good route, let us know that as well. Let's talk. Spice FM KE on X.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
Jockey and Jabba is in the studio with us this morning, and we're looking at folks who don't have access to these resources. What happens to them?
So, CJ gave a very good example. Typically, and I say this often, cases brought in court are put in a file. And so if you don't have the resources, yours is considered a file to be looked into for whichever day, you know. So they don't really realize that those files represent people. And if your affluence can't get you heard, then perhaps, and I don't mean to accuse anyone here, I'm just saying, then perhaps your file will take a little longer before it is looked into, before it is even considered. Yeah.
If what? If you don't have the money, essentially, for the resources for your case to be heard before a competent court, essentially your file will be put aside until when?
No, I think the best way to put it is your case will not get the proper kind of examination that it requires.
Yes.
And probably you'll go to jail for wrongs you never did.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you an example. Before I worked in government, as an investigator, and there's one time I was an American visited Kenya. We came to Kenya via Rwanda, so he did not go to the embassy or anything. Now, when they were in Nairobi, they went to take pictures of Uhuru Park, and they were crossing next to Parliament. And they didn't know that was Parliament. And they started taking pictures of Parliament.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they were arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it so happened that, I think some of these Westerners, when they come to Africa, they're told theft and things like that. So he was on high alert. And he was also an ex-Marine officer.
Mm.
Now, when the police a police officer approached him. He was with his camera. And in Kenya, police officers do not tell you, I'm a police officer. Then, they first grab you and then you sasa. So this was very strange to this person. Being an ex-Marine, he fought alishika jamaa and put him down. It so happened that this officer had his side down. Hapo. And this is happening just next to Parliament.
Right.
Now, this guy gets himself into a lot of problems. One is black American. So they do not know if he's a terrorist. Okay, they know he's not a Kenyan. So it gets him. So it lands on my desk and I was looking at this case. Now, the police are trying to charge him with all these nature of offenses. They've called their embassy. They have sent officers, but because this person did not register when he was coming, and he has also broken the law of the land because he has assaulted an officer under these circumstances, then they cannot appear to be intervening. Now, what happens? This guy actually came to Kenya because he was taking somebody to UHMC for treatment, and he was supposed to be here for like 3-4 days, and then they fly out. His flight, ikapita, and it was non-refundable. Now, to cut the whole story short, is this person was to actually go to jail for allegedly assaulting an officer of the law in Kenya, knowingly. Now, what assisted this person is the person was very honest when I talked to him. And when I was talking to the officer, I realized this person was lying. Now,
okay, wait, hold on. This person and this person. Who was the honest one and who was the one
person
who was
number
lying?
one?
Person number one being whom?
The photographer.
The American photographer was extremely honest.
Okay.
To a point where he was telling me, they have told me to give them 3,000 shillings. They will drop my case and I will go home.
Okay.
Yeah. But being a Marine, yeah, I would not.
My honor.
I would not give. So he lost air ticket worth 200,000 going back to the US, but not pay 3,000 shillings. So you see by Parliament there's the Parliamentary Commission. This aside, there's a CCTVs. So we went to get the footage of what happened. We realized the systems were not working.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, the officer didn't know. So when we called the officer to talk to the officer, we recreated that story in accordance with this Americans version. Yes. So we told him we've had an opportunity to look at this, and this is what happened. When we laid out what happened to him, 100%, he knew he was now in problem.
Cornered.
I'm willing now to drop these charges. The case was on the media a lot. An American has been arrested and he was claiming that he was beaten by police and all that. Now that is just one example of a case where somebody gets arrested on the wrong side. You do not have the capacity or ability to access that kind of service. Now this guy the officer went to court and said, I'm not willing to. Yes. And this American was given his passport and allowed to go back to his country. Now that is one case. How many cases do we have where unasikia mtu anakuambia niliambiwa nitaekewa bangi? Na anaekewa. And then because, if today we put bangi on you and we produce it in court,
what recourse do you have and this is the question, to state otherwise? What are you going to use to say, actually, it is not mine? How do you do that? So now, if folks are being helped, and I think this is a question, if folks are being helped, how are they being helped? Because what are you going to do? If you don't have the resources, you don't have the resources. So how are you then going to prove otherwise what a state officer is claiming? Because like we said, in criminal cases, it is the state who is against you, the individual. So how do you work out your case?
I think what you're asking is how exactly do we intervene? And TPJI basically collates experts. For instance, forensic scientists, lawyers, So, for example, if you don't have the resources, you're from a low socioeconomic status, probably, or maybe your lawyer is pro bono, unmotivated, or doesn't know. Maybe he's interacting with your file on that day. So we collect a team of experts, forensic scientists, who then reopen. They say, okay, CJ had maybe... CT. They say he had a firearm. Where do we start from there? Were there any fingerprints taken? If he was said to be in a particular place at a particular time, maybe he was next to a tower. Is his cell phone pinging at the same place? Can we geolocate him? And all of that. Resources that would be otherwise unavailable to someone who is from the lower cadre of the society.
And so with this assistance then, because we look at things like technicality when it comes to the law, and that there's certain things that are required if it's coming from, a case is being proven, especially when it has some kind of criminal culpability, that if it's something like rape, murder, things like that, forensic investigations then would be required to be done. And we're saying that certain processes have to be carried out in order for those investigations to happen. So if you don't have the resources to bring this in, the likelihood of you proving your case is difficult. But are we also saying that it is also possible to employ those resources to disprove what these individuals are saying, to get you off on a technicality that perhaps a certain process was not followed? And in order to prove that, again, you would need these resources. Is that also a scenario that we would be looking at?
Yes. Yes, that is the unfortunate and unintended consequence of what we do. That in the event you are actually truly looking into a case of somebody who actually did rape somebody, and then you'd assist them get away with an offense that they shouldn't have gotten away with. That is the unintended consequence of what we do. Now, and the Project Justice Initiative was created by Somo Group. We are investigators, we are forensic scientists who do this for pay. But we are seeing the people that are able to afford what we do are from a certain quarter. But then there's all of these other people down here. And in fact, what we did now, we said, look, this is not even going to be an in-house thing. We are calling on other experts. You come, let's work on this together. You're a criminologist, you're a lawyer. We take those cases. So this case has come on pro bono. You look at it. What do you think as a ballistic experts? Given this evidence, what can you do with it? Now, should the answers we get not be useful to you in the sense that they incriminate you more? Your lawyer retains the ability to discharge us. You see, and that is why also what we do is that you do not come to us as an individual. It's your lawyer who is dealing with your case pro bono who reaches out to us because.
But does not then limit the opportunities. What about somebody who can't even forget even having a pro bono lawyer, doesn't know that you can get a pro bono lawyer? Or are we saying that we have a system where if someone sees like he has no representation, that there is a system, there is a mechanism by which they can be afforded one? We don't have an institution, we don't have an office of the public defender in this country. Or do we?
No, there isn't.
Yes, precisely. It was something that has been discussed, but it doesn't exist. Yes. So, how does somebody who has already been arrested, doesn't have the means, even if he were asked or she were asked to pay 200 shillings, they would not have the 200 shillings. How do they get to you? Because in my understanding, that's the person who needs your help the most.
And are we saying that if they can't get to a group who is helping, essentially, your goose is cooked? You will be convicted. You will go to jail and pay the consequences for something that maybe you did not do. Is that what we're saying here, essentially? That if you don't have the resource, you're done?
Yeah, most of the time. There was that case from Committee, a man who had been released from prison after 10 years, serving time of allegedly having defiled his daughter, only for the daughter to come back later and say, look, I was told to say these things.
By my mother.
Yes. Now, that is somebody who would have benefited from an initiative like this one. Having forensic scientists, having lawyers, having doctors looking at this, say, look, there is something wrong with this evidence that prosecution is presenting. It does not meet XYZ. And then there's also this notion that because somebody is an expert witness, then they are right. Yeah, even evidence has levels of probability. And just because an expert has come to the probable inclination that you and this sample are related, does not necessarily mean it's 100%.
Something I want to understand. You say you're an investigator.
Yes.
I'll want you to explain what that means. And you are
I am a community psychologist.
Good. Let's start with you. What is a community psychologist?
So, ideally, I look at problems within the community, right from the basic unit, which is the individual, right to small groups, the family, then to slightly larger groups, and then the entire society. So how I come into play here is because eventually my role is not only engaging stakeholders, but looking at this in reference now to policy and how it affects certain groups. In this case now, we've already identified the group as the people who cannot afford all of this, what we were talking about before. And so my role would be probably at the tail end, where after every other person has done this, now we're looking at the implications in reference to policy. And I'm doing the research, coming up with it, and I'm saying this is what, or these are the gaps, and this is how the government or other institutions can then rally around this and change it.
How do you get communities to actually, this word empowerment, which is used all the time to the point where it's actually lost meaning, but let's use it for purpose of our discussion here. How do you empower groups so that in matters where they feel there's an injustice, they can get together? Because when there are many of you, that voice is heard a lot better than if it's just one person. So that they have within themselves a sort of structure that can utilize. Because if, say, I'm arrested and I'm part of that group, people will know I'm not there, but they want to know where I am. But if they're organized, then it is easier for them to get the sort of help that you are offering now. You are the investigator. What does an investigator do?
Generically, an investigator does investigations, yeah. But
do you have to work for the police to be an investigator?
No, you don't have to. I've been a government investigator, but I was never a police officer. Right now, I work as a spy, but I do not have to actually be a police officer to do it. Yes. So what we...
CT, when he said spy, your demeanor changed, but okay. Please carry on.
Not like a government spy.
No, it's all right. It's all right. If you work for NIS, it's okay. We understand. In fact, it's good. Now I know somebody works in NIS.
Oh, wow. How about you take that to its end? All right.
It's very, very positive.
Okay.
I cannot threaten people. You know, I know people work in NIS.
No.
Anyway, please. Yes. No, I'm pulling your leg.
Okay.
So what do you do?
So, as a company, we do corporate investigations. We do litigation support services. Yeah, that is as a company with the organization that we work for called Standard Group Intelligence. However, from what we do as a company, it has given birth to this thing that we're saying now, fine. There's all these people here that are not getting what they need. Yeah, they are not able to afford what we are charging. Because when you ask rightfully that, yes, somebody can be in this situation and they can pay for it. Fine, we'll work for you.
And charge you.
Yes. But when you can't afford it, and it's the majority of people, yeah, and what then do you do? Then that's where we come in and we try to assist people. They deal with some of these things. We work with the community defenders. We are integrating people from different organizations to see how best they can easily just help somebody answer a question, an evidence question. Properly, yes.
Jockey, as you look at things today, I mean, yes, the case for having a public defender has been made in Kenya, several times. Yeah. There have been discussions around it. But this is essentially what we're looking at today. That because quite a number, if we look at societies where the public defender position exists, it is for this very thing that we are talking about. Individuals who do not have the resource, individuals who do not have the connect, as we would say, to be able to defend them, whether they are guilty or not. Because, look, the law prefaces that, you are innocent until proven guilty. And that exists here as well. So are we looking at a situation where by and by, the conversation to have an office of a public defender then becomes necessary? Because it doesn't matter where you look. Look at all your institutions of incarceration today. That there are individuals who are incarcerated because they cannot afford a fine, they cannot afford resources, they cannot afford representation. So, is it time to have that conversation again?
Yes. Thank you so much, because I always say this: change is very gradual, but we get there eventually. Yeah, and such initiatives bring such conversations from the footnote to the main text. And so we're saying that eventually, because we're talking about informing policy later through evidence-based, like when we deal with a case and we research on it and we go into the communities and we find that this is a persistent problem, and so we're informing policy, and some of the recommendations that we're making are, let's do this, let's look into this. Let's say that there are people who cannot afford. And like he asked rightfully, how do I even get a lawyer in the first place, right? So that I can even get to TPJI. So if there exists such an office, then hopefully our work will be halfway done.
And the assumption is that because it is a state office, that it would be then properly resourced and equipped for these other things that our state prosecutor, for example, would have. So a state defender, a public defender rather, would have the resources, would have your investigators, would have your forensics team and all of that to counter what would be brought on by the state. That's the assumption. Is that the case?
Yeah. And I always look at this because government is pretty much intertwined, right? So for where you fund one institution, for instance, let's talk about having a public defender office, So if you do that, then that means the files that had been archived will be looked into, for instance, or there will not be as many files to be archived, and therefore the money that goes into correction or probation or into prisons and what have you significantly decreases. So you see, funding one, well, to begin with, that there would be need to perhaps look into funding it, but in the long run, the effect will have it'll be a ripple effect on all the justice institutions that we have in the country.
Jabez, as we get towards wrap, what needs to happen? Because obviously it's huge here, especially when we look at the numbers of folks who are, number one, who are languishing, who get into a situation, again, guilty or not, still need that help and that representation. We're starting to scratch the surface barely, but what needs to be done?
With my just shallow thinking, the best I would say, if anybody in a position would take into consideration, is separate scientific services from mainstream prosecution services. That would be a big step in liberating the usage. For example, if forensic experts from DCI are coming to court, we know they are working for the prosecution. And that necessitates now what we are trying to do. We shouldn't actually have to do it, because then if there is a separate office of forensics or the National Laboratory of X, that means then there's no point of having this, because it means you as an advocate can just run to them, hey, test for me this, examine for me this evidence, do this for me, and then the same report you have, I can call you to go to court and testify on my behalf, so that it's an independent laboratory, as opposed to if it's with the DCI. If they find the evidence does not suit them, they will not call that expert. You see, but when it suits them, they call him. So you're screwed either way. If the evidence exonerates you, there's no investigator will include evidence that is injurious to his case.
Right.
You see?
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you don't have the resources, neither are you involving the two. Well, like I said, we're just starting to scratch the surface of this conversation. Necessary to have it because, again, we're looking at people who need help to prove or disprove certain things. And unfortunately, incarcerated today, going through court cases today where they just don't have that kind of support. So thank you for being here this morning. Njoki Maina Gitao is the lead stakeholder engagement at the Project Justice Initiative, and Hosea Jabez is the founder of the Project Justice Initiative. We've been having that conversation this morning. Thank you very much. Looking forward to chat with you again in the near future. Folks, conversations continue. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is Newsworm Dennis Aseto. The United States and Kenya signed a defense agreement aimed at strengthening counter-terrorism efforts in East Africa and supporting Kenya's efforts to take the lead in a security mission in Haiti. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and Kenya's Defense Minister Ednah signed the 5-year agreement in Nairobi. Austin said the United States is grateful to Kenya for its leadership in tackling security challenges in the region and around the world, and thanked the country for its willingness to take the lead of a multinational security force to combat gang violence in Haiti.
So the United States remains committed to working with Kenya to help bring stability and security to the region and beyond. And we deeply appreciate Kenya's leadership and friendship.
This framework is a symbol of our shared vision for a better tomorrow. Both Kenya and the United States are driven by a common purpose, and together we will navigate the challenges that lie ahead.
He said the Biden administration would work with Congress to secure the $100 million in funding that it pledged for the Haiti mission last week. On the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, added that the U.S. will help in achieving the fight against terrorism.
Our concern is that, again, we have established some momentum. We want to make sure that, where possible, we maintain that momentum. So I think countries in the region are looking for ways to continue to help, but in terms of what that's going to look like is yet to be defined.
And from a defense perspectives, we are working very well with the U.S., both in the Horn of Africa, in East Africa, and in the Great Lakes region. And that's why you see our troops serving under ATMIS, our troops serving under the UN in DRC, and our troops serving in DRC, Eastern DRC, under the East African Regional Force.
The 4th Senate Mashinani sessions will kick off today in Turkana County all the way to Friday. Various committees are expected to use the period to discuss various bills and especially issues that concern Turkana County, where residents have raised several issues that they would like to be discussed. Among them is to evaluate the measures taken in the devolved units, taking into account the ones that were allocated in the old system. Likewise, it is one of the counties facing the challenges of drought and hunger and the lack of necessary infrastructure such as roads. Senate Speaker Amason Kingi arrived in Turkana accompanied by some senators, while promising to ensure that the sessions are used to provide solutions to these and other problems. Kingi has said that they aim to use this week's sessions to discuss issues affecting the county's residents.
You can proudly say, were it not for the Senate visit in Turkana, we wouldn't be this far. That is the kind of impact we wish to leave behind, and that can only be made possible if instead of your members living in Lodwar, because the chambers are now being occupied by the Senate, they will work very closely with us so that they can extract as much knowledge as they can. And this goes beyond the interaction between the members of the county assembly and the senators.
On his part, the governor of the county, Jeremiah Lumurukai, has assured the senators of their safety when the sessions start.
Kwa hivyo nafasi hii ningependa kuwakaribisha Turkana County kwamba Turkana County sisi tunapenda seneti yetu kwa sababu ya kazi nzuri wamefanya. Licha ya yale mambo yote yanaongewa kuhusu Turkana, mambo ya usalama, mambo ya umaskini, mambo ya kiangazi na mambo mengine, seneti wameamua kuja Turkana. Kwa hivyo nawakaribisha Turkana wakuje waweke vikao vyao bila shida na wajisikie wako nyumbani.
Sisi kama kamati ya kaunti ya usalama tunatoa hakikisho ya kwamba masuala ya usalama yamedhibitiwa kuanzia barabarani Kainuk huku kote pitia Kakong, Lokichar hadi Lodwar, maeneo yote ambayo wageni wetu watajisitiri.
And a Nairobi court released a suspect with the murder of Nairobi Hospital acting finance director Eric Maigo after the prosecution said they have no evidence to charge the suspect. Maigo was discovered with 25 stab wounds at his Nairobi residence last week. This one comes as the DCI released images of the woman suspected to be connected to his murder, appealing to the public to assist in her arrest. Now, outbreaks of dengue fever and acute watery diarrhea have killed hundreds in war-torn Sudan. This is according to medical professionals warning of catastrophic spreads that could overwhelm the country's decimated health systems. In a statement, the Sudanese Doctors Union warned that the health situation in the southeastern state of Gadaref on the border of Ethiopia is worsening at a horrific rate, with thousands infected with dengue fever. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Asada. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
It's critical that people pay taxes. But then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this is now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest? And we say, these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
You know, with politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a leader, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Okay, so a few minutes after 8 o'clock now, and traffic hour probably got heavy about half hour ago. We're looking at it heavy on the Thika Superhighway. This one is not letting up, at least not for now. Well beyond the Outer Ring Junction, traffic coming in bumper to bumper all the way through to the Pangani Underpass. You're going to get to Murang'a Road, and then on the other side, Wangari Maathai. Wangari Maathai will touch on traffic coming in from Chiromo, folks who are trying to go out towards Limuru Road. So that in and outbound traffic is doing a thing this morning. We're also looking at then coming in from Westlands, a little bit of that happening. Uhuru Highway is probably the busiest that we'll see right about now. And there it is, Langata Road, coming off Magadi Road, quite some traffic, then getting towards Raila Odinga Way, where some of that will split towards the City Mortuary roundabout. We are in traffic hour, and it's going to be a busy Tuesday from all indications. We're going to keep an eye on things and try to keep our wits about. Let's talk on Spice FM KE on X and try to keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Into the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning on the 26th of September 2023, and we're getting into it and asking a couple of questions this hour as well. Our guest for the hour is seated, but let's talk about something that we must do standing and running, actually. And the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon gets into its 20th edition this year, 2023. And thinking about the first time, 2003, when this happened in Kenya, and And looking 20 years on, it's this special one. And this year, on the 29th of October, Sunday morning, get up and run for a good cause. Run for yourself and run for others. Register on www.nairobimarathon.com. 2,000 shillings. And then what you can do is look at your proceeds go towards the Future Makers program, which guarantees that young people, especially girls and those with disability, have a chance to learn, earn and grow. Do that today. The 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon happening on the 29th of October. All right. This hour, the Kitui Central Member of Parliament is here with us. There's certain things we will be discussing, and as we get into it, want to welcome Mheshimiwa Dr. Makali Mulu. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine. We thank God for this good morning. It's
Indeed.
a cold morning, but not very cold.
Indeed, we do.
Yes.
We look at your social media, and every other mention that you make is of some biblical reference.
Yes.
Some reference to God. It's interesting that here we are and we're doing that again.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime I go to church, anytime I read the Bible and I get some interesting verse, I keep it somewhere to remember. So that anytime I want to access it, I just go to my Twitter account and I can access it.
Indeed. Oh, that's interesting. It is. And it's also interesting that Member of Parliament, so we're looking at legislative, but you're also an economist. So you understand this money thing, a little bit at least.
Not a little bit. Actually, that's what I've been doing all in my life, except the last 11 years when I've been in Parliament. I'm an economist by training.
Yes.
With 3 degrees in that discipline.
Okay. So then
what was your specialty?
First degree economics, second degree economics, third degree PhD in economics, but more public sector economics.
Okay. So here we are in a space where we're talking about a number of things this morning.
Yes.
From the political, administrative, legislative, in terms of the possibility of extension of presidential term limits, and looking at the cost of living as well. And also asking the question, what is in it for Kenyans? And we're going to get into that this morning.
Yes.
But we want to welcome you properly in a way in which we do on this show.
Thank you.
CT does that by way of our proverb.
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Kenya. Now, I have asked our listeners that because I will not tell you which part of Kenya the proverbs come from, as you hear the proverb, try and figure out if you have a similar proverb rather, in whatever part of the country you come from.
I come from.
Or something that has a meaning similar to what it is. That is the proverb of the day. The water of the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty man.
Now, where I come from, we don't have such a proverb.
Okay. What would such a proverb mean to you if you did?
What it means basically is some things will happen whether you are there or you are not there. For example, people will die whether you like it or not. At other times, things will happen because they are beyond your capacity to control them. Because when you talk about the river, the water is already flowing. It's either you give way or you swim with the river to the ocean. And swimming might mean even when you are dead.
Yes, it might.
Yes, it might mean when you are dead. So it's just at times you have to give way. Simple.
Yes.
Times you have to give way.
Indeed. Or take advantage of a thing when it's right there in front of you, no?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, fantastic, Mheshimiwa. I mean, there's certain things that have been happening in terms of speech, in terms of thoughts over the last couple of days. We've seen it maybe a few months ago, but then we saw it pop up a few days ago. And we're going to have a hybrid conversation this morning about what really is in all of these conversations for Kenyans, coming from a legislative point of view, coming from an economic point of view, and a political point of view as well.
Yeah, sure.
The extension of presidential term limits, we can pretend like it takes us with shock, but the truth of the matter is that it is harbored in the minds of many. I want to get an understanding of where you feel this comes from, and if there's even a possibility of having such a discussion in Kenya today.
Okay, thank you. What has happened is, if you look at the history of this country, the proposal coming from Honorable Senator is not a new proposal. You remember at one point, when the late President Moi was in power, there was also the proposal to make him a life president. So basically, what is happening is that anytime people get into power, there's that remote imagination that you can never leave power. And mostly the people who are close to power, they keep on testing the waters to find out whether the rest of the country will actually go to their side in terms of supporting that position. And I think that's what I see happening. But as you rightly put it, some of these proposals are very strategic in design. That you want to start with step one. It's like going up a staircase. That you want to say, let's extend by 2 years. If that is taken up, maybe the next level would be, why don't we make this
10.
a life, not even 10, life now presidency, so that the person in power will just be there up to the end of his life when God decides otherwise. But what people forget, and I think that's what this proposal, that's why you see it has triggered a lot of interest. At one point, I remember, I've been in Parliament for some time. I joined Parliament in 2013, and if you look at the 11th Parliament, instead of doing 60 months, which is 5 years, we did about 56. We actually lost about 8 months. And as members of Parliament that time, that was just immediately after the new constitution, we were saying now that we all agree that we need this additional 8 months. Why don't we test the waters and say that we want to extend our term by 8 months so that we push the elections instead of the normal. That time it was March, so the other one was coming in now in August, as in the constitution. So we were saying then, why don't we test the waters and see whether we can push these elections from August to March, where we were elected, because we were elected in March 13th. But now the next one, because the constitution was saying it has to be the second Tuesday of August. So constitutional requirement was that we do it August. So we said, why don't we push to March again so that we serve our full term of 5 years? And I can tell you, all of us as parliamentarians were in agreement that would be of benefit to us, because anytime we approach elections, we have a lot of fears, you don't know that you'll be re-elected, and then an additional month to your term makes sense. So I can tell you, Kenyans just said, oh, no, they could not agree with that. They said, okay, we have elected you, you are our representatives, some of you have high chances of coming back, but we are saying, no, we don't want. We must go for election. And that's what I see happening. We are now in a country where people are so much informed that majority of the population is in a level of intelligence which is so high that you cannot play tricks on them. And if you want to be safe, is just to do what as the law says. And when you look at what is happening, any extension to the presidential term is a constitutional provision. To make it worse, this is one of the few provisions in the constitution that would require a referendum. So what will happen is, if this was even to start, before you get to the end of it, you have to go through a referendum. And I can tell you for sure, the other day I was cracking a joke yesterday saying, if this guy wanted to be very fair to Kenyans, he would actually be saying reduce the term to only 1 year so that we go to elections today. And we can see what Kenyans are thinking about this government. Because for sure people are tired. We interact with people from all over the country, and I can tell you Kenyans are tired. If given a chance to go to elections today, you'll be surprised.
Exactly. What are they tired of exactly?
The issue, the next topic, cost of living. It has gotten to a level where people have given up. There's a lot of confusion in this country, the way things are being done. You look at all the sectors, the education sector full of confusion, the health sector full of confusion. These are the basic sectors. Water sector, you see what is happening, full of confusion. So when all these basics are everything is confused, you can imagine the level of frustration which our people are in. The other thing, this government has given lots of promises, and when you give such a level of promises, then what happens is, if you can't deliver them, the first people to raise up to say no to it would be the low level, what I call the low level of income Kenyans.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm telling you, I wish we went to elections this year, Alexia.
Seriously,
it would be good.
It would, really quickly.
So this senator should be proposing reduce from 7 to 2.
But we can't. One of the things that you've established is that we cannot run away from the fact that there actually is an appetite to extend leadership, to extend the position of leadership, not to extend leadership or good governance, but to extend the position. And when we look at that, we mentioned this earlier, when we look at it, we're not looking at what could be the benefits or the merits of that. What we're looking at, and what makes us feel a certain type of way, is that there is an assumption that this person or these persons who would remain in these positions will want to do things that will bring extra benefit to themselves and not the nation. That's why we feel so bad about it.
Yes. But basically the question is, why do we need leaders in our lives? It is which level of leadership? What do you need a leader in your life? A leader is somebody who should be able, whether it's church leadership, whether it's even family leadership. A leader is somebody who's supposed to have a clear vision. Somebody who should be pushing your life to the positive, not negative. Helping you move from one level of life to the other because of the policies, the programs they will put in place so that they improve your life. So in your situation where you are a leader and then the life of the people you lead does not change at all, it remains the same, or if things work, then they work for the worst, is you are not helping them. Then even from where you sit as a person, it's human nature that you might want to be there, but really the question is, if you're not changing people's life positively, then why do you want to be a leader? And to me, this is now the challenge. Do you go for leadership for selfish interests?
Yes.
Or do you go for leadership to change the lives of the people you are leading?
One would hope that it would be the latter, but we've seen that it is the former.
It is the former. Then the other question is, there's this saying that the leaders you get are as good as the people who elect them. So you've seen a situation where we all say this leader is not helping us, but come every election, they get re-elected. So how do you kind of balance the two? That there is a leader whom, by your standards, when you do your own analysis, objective analysis, when you look at things from even perspective of the perception issues, people are saying you're not helping us. But come the election day, that leader gets re-elected. And this happens, you look at our parliament.
Our political system is multi-tiered.
It's multi-tiered.
Multi-tiered, the system.
I like that.
And how we elect people is not multi, it's extra multi-tiered. We don't elect people because they're necessarily popular or they have money. No.
You okay?
It is, you could be popular. You could be someone who has development, because there are others who are elected and there's no development record at all.
Correct.
But the one thing that ties, the thread that ties these things together is what you call the identity politics that we practice.
Oh yeah, the identity politics.
That trumps everything else. If there is a dominant party in your region and you're in that party, barring a situation where there is a candidate who's genuinely very popular, you will be elected simply because you are in that party.
Then the question is, and I think it's the most now interesting debate.
Yes.
What does that say about the voter?
It says that the voter believes that a strong leadership in the community is the avenue through which they can get the help they think they need. So it isn't an individual. They propel someone to leadership. And even the leadership that is propelled in the community may not make sense to you. Don't try and make sense of it. Just understand that that is the person the community has chosen. And that person will head a political party. Now, that political party is what they believe. Now, until we get to a time when we've been disenfranchised and disillusioned so many times that we realize this thing of political parties doesn't work. We haven't gotten there yet. we will still be going along those lines. That is why even now you see, like with the last elections, more and more ethnically inclined political parties have come up and people are rallying behind them. There are regions that haven't done that yet, but everyone is heading in that direction. Yes.
And then that's where the challenge is. Then you know what then happens? That takes away the issue of why you elect leaders. Because now you are so much blinded to a level that you don't question the leadership you have.
You don't, but if you look at the evolution of our politics, it's unfortunate that as a continent, our politics has always revolved around individuals, not political parties. And when you talk of the political party, it is the person who heads it really, around whom everything revolves. Yes. And the unfortunate thing with a country like ours, a lot of what we call development has always been tied in with the affiliation an individual has with that person who's at the helm of this ruling party. So we haven't gotten out of that thing out of our minds. And that is the reason why coalitions work. Because people feel so long as we have our person in government,
then you are done.
Yeah, even if they're just a minister, we're okay. If we don't, then our goose is cooked. And that's why the drafters of our new constitution understood this and said, let's get away from this. So let's create counties. So you cannot say that everything has to emanate from the national government. You will have your own government in the locality that you come from. Now that government will look after you. Now our lived experience is that our own governments are replicating exactly what the national government used to do.
If not worse, by the way.
And these are our people.
What has happened? The other day, I don't know, there was this survey which was done the other day. Was it last year?
Yes.
And on the counties.
Yes.
And it actually confirmed that some of the local economies of these counties have even worsened as compared to the earlier, where we had a centralized system. So which means leaders are marginalizing their own people.
They are.
For example, if I'm now the governor of Kitui, you realize that before I take Kitui, what happens is there's always a baseline survey which indicates where we are. Health matters, water matters, agriculture matters. And then after 5 years, you do such a survey, it might happen that even people are worse off in some of these key indicators. And that's why you see we are saying, I think as Kenyans, we might not really be able to do away with the fact that we are tribal, we are more regional, but with the time we need to think about the bigger issue of how do we develop a country. And the development will start at the counties because that's something we have to live with. Kenyans have said these are good.
Should that be with time, Mheshimiwa, or should it be now?
It should be now. I mean, you know, development does not come in a day.
Sure, but
it takes time, but then you need to put up the right building blocks. So that like now, we should be seeing a situation where out of the 47 counties, we see a situation where year out we see more cases of corruption, reported corruption cases. We see more cases of people now where we are the health indicators starting to give positive, so that with the time, then we can say we are now on the right trajectory in terms of positive. And if that happens, then because development cannot happen in a day, we can say in another 15 years to come, will be better. And that's why you see even these counties which got good pioneer governors. Now we have done 10 years of devolution. Counties which got good pioneer governors. This third level of now the third period of governance, what has happened is they were able to put up some very good foundations for their counties. And those who are coming now are actually just building on those foundations. There are others which started on the wrong footing. And instead of now starting zero, going positive, they are already at negative. So the second cycle of governors who have taken after 10 years are actually now working on the negatives to bring it to zero before they start going positive.
Yeah, and that's going to take a lot of time.
And that is going to take a lot of time. And that now, this is all about leadership.
Unfortunately, Mheshimiwa, that even the premise on which we started this conversation today, for me, usually mirrors a smoke screen.
Yes.
whereby there are conversations that are thrown onto the table, kind of like a dead cat strategy, so that all of us are looking at this thing and everybody's talking about term limits, extended term limits, whereby there are things that are going on in the country for which if a little bit of effort was being put towards, we would be able to fix. I mean, there's a list. I don't even know where we can start. Are we looking at the health situation?
It's a long list.
Are we looking at the cost of living, which is something that it's been in our mouth, but it is actually hitting us in the face today with the rising cost of fuel, with the rising cost of food and transport, with the fact that people cannot put their children in school, that people today have children at school, at home today because they cannot go to school, that people go to hospitals, cannot get drugs. Those are the issues that are not being addressed. But here we are talking about extending a term limit for something that it doesn't matter. So how are we going to be able to remove our minds from the political drive of the day and focus on the matters that matter?
Actually, I can't agree more. You know what, you put it into context. The issue is, and I think the big question is, where we are as a country, is this time the right time to discuss extension of presidential term, or is this the time to discuss issues which are of concern to Kenyans on day-to-day basis? And you agree with me, we should be discussing about what you have put on the table. The issues of cost of living, issues of health, issues of education, issues of water, issues of economic empowerment of our people. These are the issues we should be discussing. But you can see somebody from nowhere has already pushed our attention to an issue which to me I think should be an issue. Because on a serious note, the current regime has 5 years to govern. They have only done one. So they have 4 years. Why are we even discussing the extension of an additional 2 years to make it 7 when they have already done one? This debate would have possibly come after the 3rd year or the 4th year or even the 5th year when now we are approaching the elections. So that for now, we focus so much on the promises we give to Kenyans and focus so much on the issue of cost of living. Well, the other day I was watching some clip on telly, and I think it was a former MP, Honorable Katel, who was talking somewhere in Kericho, where he was saying, show me a petrol station where I will go as an opposition member or an Azimio member to go and fuel my car, and show me a petrol station where I will go as a Kenya Kwanza member to go and fuel my car. At the end of the day, it boils down to the fact that we are all fueling from the same petrol station. So whether you're in government or not in government, the issue of fuel prices is biting across the board. It is biting when you fuel your car. And what has happened, and people might not realize this, we have been in this debate for many, I think I've done more than 100 sessions on this debate of cost of living as an economist. I've been invited to so many radio stations, to so many TV stations. And what we keep on saying every day is that this matter of cost of living, unless it is resolved, it is not going to provide any room for another serious debate in this country. Because people will always go around and they come back. You are telling us about this, our tummies are empty.
Okay.
We need to eat.
So let's take a break on that note, Mheshimiwa. But truth for me is that is what we actually should be having a conversation about today. And the ways in which this ought to be fixed.
Yes.
That we have people who are in the legislature. We have people who are in county governments who've been put there by way of the vote.
Yes.
And there's actually something that they can do about this. Whether it's rallying up the executive, whatever it is, something can be done. And that's the conversation we ought to be having. We're taking a break. It's 28 minutes to 9 o'clock. Mheshimiwa, Dr. Mulu is in the studio with us today. And so let's look at the numbers and say what can be done instead of focusing on other things. Assis tea is grown on the rolling hills of Kurosoi district. And they provide this powerful tea that is done here in Kenya. And it's fantastic, even for global export. I have the green tea, calming. It's a powerful source of antioxidants. And there's other great tea. There's purple tea, there's masala tea, there's ginger tea. Having a cuppa. We're spilling the tea this morning in all ways, Assis and otherwise. It's 27 minutes to 9.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Online, mobile, and on radio. Twitter at SpiceFMKE.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. And hii mambo utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
17 degrees and sunny conditions in some parts of Nairobi. Mostly cloudy though. We'll see highs of 27, lows of 14. It's 17 and sunny in Nakuru with highs of 26 and lows of 14. Sunny at 17 in Nyeri with highs of 27. And Eldoret at 18 is cloudy, going to highs of 24. It's 27 and sunny in Mombasa with highs of 30. And in Malindi, sunny at 28 with highs of 30. It's mostly cloudy at 23 in Kisumu, highs of 29. And Kakamega will see highs of 28, where it's currently cloudy at 21. It's mostly sunny at 20 in Kampala with highs of 28, and Dar es Salaam sunny through and through at 26 with highs of 29. 8 degrees and partly sunny in Johannesburg with highs of 19, and Lagos will see highs of 30, currently cloudy at 24. Kinshasa sunny at 23, it will see highs of 33.
Chilled Spice.
All right, the business of traffic this morning continues on the Thika Superhighway, and we're looking at that coming in then all the way through towards the CBD. So coming in on Moranga Road is where we'll see a lot of it right about now. Langata Road is also busy. It's going to spill over some of it towards Raila Odinga Way. And coming off Uhuru Highway, then just coming in from Capital Centre onto Uhuru Highway, past the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. We're also seeing some of that this morning. It's busy on the Eastern Bypass. Outbound traffic towards that Roai Junction is a bit of a menace for folks today, so it's moving slowly, coming out of that one, hopefully in no time. Out of Westlands, also, you should be fine. We're going to keep an eye on that and see what happens as you come towards the expressway exit and then onto Chiromo. All right, Spice FM KE on X. We want to keep things moving this morning.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
9 o'clock. We're having this conversation this morning, and we're looking at a number of things that are enveloping Kenyans. One that I've already established in my mind is taking people away from the real issues that matter, and another one that actually does matter. Dr. Makali Mulu is the Kitui Central Member of Parliament, and he's here with us this morning, and an economist in his own right as well. And when we're looking at this issue that Kenyans are talking about, but the truth of the matter that is happening to Kenyans. And here we are with leadership that should actually be working on some of these matters. And we still seem to say that the situation is getting worse. What can be done as opposed to diverting attention? And I'm going to add something to that. We're looking at some things that are being done in government today. There are talks that are going on, bipartisan talks, which for the understanding of many Kenyans, the first item on the agenda was the high cost of living. We don't know where that is happening right now. Debt is through the roof in this country, and we were told that, borrowing will not happen again. But we're seeing an extension, if anything, of what was happening in a previous administration. We were also told that there will be no change to the constitution when it came to certain things in terms of governance and leadership. But those talks are already happening today. So how do we say that you will put your hope in a government, in an administration, which is extending what was happening in a previous one?
Quite a good question. Let's look at it this way. when we went to the campaigns, we had two main teams. We had what we call the Kenya Kwanza team, and we had the Azimio team. And each of these teams did promise many things to Kenyans. At the end of the day, it is the Kenya Kwanza team which has now the mandate to govern this country for the next 5 years. And basically, governance would mean for the next 5 years, they have been given that opportunity and the instruments of power to implement their manifesto. So the starting point would be what was in their manifesto. And I think you briefly have summarized their manifesto, where you say there was indication that they will not borrow more. There was indication that once we take power, we'll be able to look at the CBC program and see what amendments need to be done. Or if the worst comes to the worst, there was also a proposal that we could actually abolish it. You remember during their campaigns. There was a proposal that once we take up, we will make sure that, and many clips have gone out there where they were saying the price of fuel will definitely make sure it comes down. I remember one of the times the current president was saying people don't seem to understand that when you increase the price of fuel, it hurts the common mwananchi. So all those many things. So where we are today is looking at what is happening. Where are we and why are we there? The first question is the cost of living. The reason why the cost of living has gone up is we could put it into two categories. There is what I'll call the internal factors, which are localized. That is Kenyan problems. And there is the external. And any time you listen to this government, they seem now to be hiding behind the external. But they are basic internal problems, to me, more of a structural thing which they have not addressed. We have said this many times that one of the challenges we're having as a country, and I now want to talk as an economist, is that in any time you're doing a country's budget, you look at what we call the expenditure side of the budget, how much do you want to spend, and then based on that you look at where do we get the resources to do what we want to do. That is now the revenue side of the economy. The revenue side normally is through tax, which is locally generated income, and then you could go borrowing. So initially the talk was we will not borrow, we will see how to generate more revenue locally. You remember the issue of the finance bill. I think it took a lot of your time, me and debating, I'm sure. But where we have not gotten it right, from my point of view as an economist, is the expenditure side of the equation. That as a country, Kenya Kwanza has taken over the government. I don't know whether this is informed by the promises or is informed by just that urge to spend more, that the expenditure bit of it has really gone out of way. And you saw the other day the report by Control of Budget, where he, after 1 year, the report he submitted, he tabled, was now analyzing the expenditure for the last 1 year up to June 30th. And out of that, you could see the main expenditure items, mostly recurrent. And to make things worse, the highest expenditure was coming from the top office, the presidency, where the office of the president, the office of the deputy president, and the office of the prime minister,
prime secretary,
cabinet secretary.
Yes.
If you combine those three, I think we're talking about 20 billion in terms of recurrent. Look at the issue of public debt. As at 30th June, Parliament has only approved 10 trillion as a debt ceiling. There's a law which has come to Parliament which you are working on to amend now from a figure, a numerical figure, to a percentage, what they call the debt hunk, which is now 55%. But that bill has not yet become law.
But you all are working on it.
We are working on it, and as we are talking now, the bill is we have a stalemate, because if you have been following what is happening, we have already formed what we call a mediation committee. A mediation committee means Senate and the National Assembly cannot agree. So they have formed a team of about National Assembly 7, Senate will be 7, a team of 14 to come and sit and then look at this bill. Now, what will happen if the two teams don't agree? The bill dies a natural death. Now, if it dies a natural death, we go back to 10 trillion. As we are talking today, we are at 10.25 trillion.
Yes.
We overshot the limit.
We've already shot the limit set by the Parliament. So we are already operating outside the legal framework provided, which means currently somebody should be seated somewhere explaining why have you gone above this limit.
Isn't that somebody Parliament?
That should be somebody in Parliament. Treasury should now be coming to Parliament. We have been on recess. But I imagine this week or the other week, we should be seeing Treasury being summoned by Parliament. I happen to sit in that committee so that they explain to the Parliament why you've overshot by about 250 billion. But now what is very, very, very worrying is the fact that we are overshooting this ceiling when the government, which promised that we will not borrow more, is in power.
I'm going to take a stab at Parliament as the legislature here and ask a few questions.
Yes.
Let's look at the scenario.
Yes.
The high cost of living today, even before the rising of taxes was an issue, right? And Kenyans are saying, look, it's getting really expensive to survive, right? So the highest expenditure on revenue today is payment of debt.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact,
That's true.
it's the first thing that goes out, and it's the highest in terms of percentage.
Sure.
Thereafter is recurrent expenditure, the very high wage bill that Kenya has in terms of responsibility on its shoulders, payment of state office and things like this. Now, to pay that debt, because, there's nowhere else where this money is coming from, there has to be an increase in taxes on Kenyans today. And the revenue that is being sought is not the revenue that is being brought, because there's just not enough. So the question is, there is no option, according to them, but to raise the amount of money that is brought in via tax. But still that money is not coming in because businesses are folding, individuals just don't have, they're not able to meet it. So one would hope that the robust question, recess or not, that's coming in from Parliament would be, how are we going to solve this problem? Asking, why is public debt through the roof? Asking, the money that was borrowed was supposed to be for development. Where is the development that's supposed to be happening? Those are the questions that we would hope would be asked on behalf of the people. But we don't hear that.
No, it's happening. I want just to take you back. You remember when COVID hit this country? What happened that time? Parliament, through the budget committee, because in Parliament we have the majority and the minority side. Procedurally, the majority side is supposed to be championing the interests of the government. So what would happen in such a situation is, during the COVID, the minority leader and the majority leader were able to, through the other committees of Parliament, were able to sit and say, where we were today, we need to come up with measures to cushion Kenyans, because people had lost jobs, nothing was happening in the economy. And you remember that time we came up with a special program where we reorganized the budget to push more resources to areas where you could cushion Kenyans. Now, what is required to be done? I don't think we are short of options, and we have said this in the past. One of the things we need to do, and we can give these options because they have been tested and they have worked. One of the things we could do currently, when things become very tough to the community, you could look at the budget purely, because the reason why we are borrowing is because we are on budget deficit. The kind of money we are collecting is not enough to finance our budget. So there are two ways, and that's what I was saying, we need to look at the expenditure side of the budget. In areas where we have programs which we think we could either reschedule them to be done in the future, or we could scale them down for purposes of being done in phases, so that we wanted to spend 100 billion on a matter today, we can say for this year let's spend 50, and then you have that space to do other things. The other thing you can also do, in terms of taxation, there are things you can do, and we have said this many times. Currently, where we are today, in terms of taxation, there's the theory, the economic theory, which says there's a level you tax people up to. If you go beyond that, you collect less.
It's called diminishing returns.
We normally call it RAVE theory. So it's a curve, which once you get that, the total collections will always come down. What happens normally is, currently where we are today, and I've seen it happening, when you overtax people, there are two things which happen. One of them is they are likely to change their consumer behavior. For example...
Or they're guaranteed to change their consumer behavior.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So what happens is, when you're expecting to collect money, the people will change their behavior. If they change their behavior, then you will not collect that money. For example, what I've seen, and I've just been driving as I came here, you realize now there are more Kenyans walking to work now as opposed to using matatu or using private cars. What does that mean? The fuel you added from 8% to 16%, hoping that the volume to be drawn remains the same, definitely will go down. Because if I parked my car and I'm no longer using my car, I'm now on a matatu, automatically it means the fuel I've been drawing, I will not draw it. So the tax component of that fuel disappears. So over time, that's the growth. The other thing, what happens is businesses will reorganize their models.
Indeed.
Now, once businesses reorganize their models, then you are also likely not to collect as much as you expected. And the worst bit of it, now, the worst, is when taxes become very high, people refer to tax avoidance. So that if it's a company like where we are today, you could think of about having two payrolls. You have payroll for the taxman, and you have a payroll for the company. Now, this is the worst bit, because people come up with very innovative ways of making sure they don't pay tax. So even when you are imagining that you'll be collecting more, you collect less.
Indeed. Weshimia, will we hear questions about where the supposed development expenditure went? Because it's extremely important here.
No, it is.
Because the law states, and we know this, the law states that you borrow, you're borrowing for development. Now, if you cannot see requisite development projects in the country that equal to the amount of money that came in, then there's a problem. And the only people who can ask the question today and ask for investigations into what exactly happened to be made public, again,
is members of parliament.
Is Bunge.
You're right.
So when will we hear these questions being asked? Because if they're not asked...
Actually, we must also... Let's give it to parliament also, because as I said, I've been there, this is my third term. The first and second term I've served in parliament, we didn't have really a committee looking purely on matters public debt. This 13th parliament, because of the issue of public debt becoming a very big issue in this country, Parliament now has come up with a committee called Public Debt and Privatization Committee, which now the committee is purely looking at matters public debt and issues of consolidated fund, the withdrawal from the consolidated fund. And I can tell you, up to now, that committee has tabled about 5 reports. And when you look at those 5 reports, it would be very interesting to discover what has been happening with our public debt. Some of the things which can be explained. For example, now, this country, for the last almost over 10 years, we have been paying something called commitment fee. Commitment fee is when you sign a loan and you don't draw the loan. So there are loans we have signed for the last over 10 years. We signed it for as a country. We have not been drawing those loans. And every year we are paying about not less than 500 million.
But why have we not drawn?
Commitment fee.
Why have we not drawn down?
Now, this is another question this committee has started now asking. Because you realize anytime you talk to Treasury, ask them what is happening, they will tell you, the department is not able to give us information. But now this committee is now on top of that. The other thing you'll be surprised is, in terms of loans, there are loans which have been taken in this country, because this is public knowledge, and you can't trace what this loan did. I want to give you an example. There's a loan which was in the papers, in the books. It says it was taken by Kenya Power, about 7.6 billion, taken by Kenya Power. Now, when we are discussing...
Was that guaranteed by the government?
Yeah, obvious. That was guaranteed by the government.
Right.
Now, this loan, in the books, says it is Kenya Power which took the loan, guaranteed by the government.
Yes.
Now, when you interact with the Auditor General, and the report is there, the Auditor General report says Kenya Power is not even aware about that law. So,
but in the books, it is
what now this committee has done, the committee has made a recommendation instructing the Auditor General to do a forensic audit of this loan, so that we know where did this loan go. So what we are saying in simple terms now, as we move to the future, if we want to help this country, let's get loans which are tied to specific programs and projects.
But these ones are supposedly tied to specific ones, but we can't see them.
When we take the loans, surely,
I mean,
the purpose for the loan is stated.
That's the thing.
Yes.
But now you know what has happened. For example, this one I've just mentioned. It tells you what? There's a very high likelihood that the money was diverted to other uses. The fact that you take a loan for city here, then you are the person carrying the loan, but it doesn't reach here.
Yes.
So what has happened? In the meantime, something must have happened. So we are saying, let's now, anytime we get a loan, we have a system of knowing it is taken for you, and then we have a system to follow to make sure that it reaches you. And actually it's used for the intended purpose. And those are the gaps. The other gap which has been existing is that in terms of public debt, there is this issue of when you take a loan, the law allows something called sinking fund. The law, it is in our Public Finance Management Act.
Yeah.
That if you take a loan, can you from the word go have a sinking fund? Sinking fund is where your funds, so that by the time the loan matures,
yes,
you have money to pay the loan.
Yes.
This fund, even though it's in our legal books,
we don't have.
It has never been operationalized. So those are the gaps we have now started to pick as Parliament, and we are saying if we want to streamline the issues of public debt in this country, then that's the direction to go. There is the issue of the foreign exchange, which we can't rule it out. You know, the dollar has gone crazy. So
it's not the dollar.
It's the shilling that has gone crazy.
I mean, it's the dollar.
The dollar is doing what it's doing.
No, the shilling and the dollar. I mean that exchange rate.
Yeah.
So basically, what we are saying is we also need to come up with very clear strategies. How do we manage our public the foreign exchange issues?
Would it help if if Treasury was removed or was independent of the Ministry of Finance?
That's one of the problems that has been keeps on coming. But to me, I think even in countries where we have Treasury standalone and finance standalone, even though they could be in the book standalone, at the end of the day they work very closely because they are managing the public purse. So I think what we do just is for people who are managing these resources to be just truthful.
I don't think so, because if that is the case, then Parliament and the executive would be one thing, and we would say they will still play the part of being an oversight. No. The clear separations need to be there so that you can know who to hold accountable. Because if Treasury acts as a department of finance, my friend, the commingling and the intermingling will be so vast you will not even know where to begin.
I think what we can do is, because this is nothing new, it exists, I think people could we could do studies on the both.
Yes.
What are the merits of separation and what are the demerits of separation? Based on that, but that proposal keeps on coming.
Do you remember that this office, the budget control, was part
Controller,
of the
CBO,
It was part of the Auditor General's office at some point.
Yes.
Now, do you see the benefits of the separation?
Yes.
Yes.
Now they are more independent now.
Yes.
They can jack.
The very thinking that brought about the three arms of government is the same thinking that I'm proposing.
That you're proposing.
But let me ask you a question. This is something that has bothered my mind.
Yes.
Sometimes we blame the leadership needlessly. Why do I say this? We may be blaming them, but they're actually not able to do the things that we think they can do.
What do you mean? And they're the leaders?
No.
Okay.
Being a leader doesn't mean you can get elected.
Elaborate a bit.
What I mean is this. If somebody doesn't have the capacity to do something.
Okay. Capacity issue.
Yes.
Okay.
You can actually see them trying, but they never quite get there.
Exactly. That's right.
Because if they have capacity, then you see it. They actually do what they're supposed to do. You see it. But if someone is trying, but it isn't working, we can be saying, we have explained it and explained and explained it. It's the same thing I ask of the governors we've elected. Surely, sometimes perhaps you're expecting too much. This person probably can't do what the...
Yeah. Capacity. No, capacity is a statement of fact. When you talk about capacity, that's a statement of fact.
Yes.
You can't change it. Because as you say, there are situations where people have capacity and they can do things. There are situations where if you have no capacity, you don't have a capacity.
It doesn't matter how much you try.
And unless you get a way of enhancing the capacity, then automatically your hands are tied. And I think that's where most of and that is close to what you were saying earlier. In a situation where you conduct your elections on the basis of region, tribal, or our person, then you're likely to get people who have no capacity. And once they sit there, then you have nothing else to do other than the 5 years where you realize that the capacity is not there, and then you change. That time is already gone.
Yeah.
You can undo the clock.
I feel as though you just got here, Mheshimiwa, and our time is running out. But, very quickly, a wrap up from you. I feel that we should have this situation conversation every day until something is done about it. Until it's front and center for those who make the laws that, look, people are suffering today, not tomorrow. People are suffering today. And the sins of the past and those of the present are continuing to make an impact on how Kenyans live today. How should that conversation continue at your point of legislation, really quickly?
To me, I think all said and done, we can't say Parliament has been 100%. We also have our own challenges as Parliament. And we need to up our game as Parliament, because the oversight role is actually ours. We're the people who should be now pointing out these things, and when we think we need to change the law, we change it. But this also, from my analysis, when you look at our governance architects, we have a bit of challenge which need to be. What has happened normally is, this idea of you have a majority lead party and a minority party, and the majority party is mostly composed of the people now in government.
Yes.
Also weakens the role of Parliament. Because there are situations where you find this matter makes a lot of sense, but then when it comes to Parliament, because of the party lines, people are whipped to go the party lines. Anytime you go party line, you lose objectivity.
Have a problem.
You lose objectivity. And I think that's a challenge we have as a country. So we need to think of a way of ensuring that Parliament, as you were saying earlier, is an institution which can make independent decisions with minimal influence from the executive.
Mheshimiwa Dr. Makali Mulu, thank you for being our guest this hour. Hope to talk to you again in the future.
Yeah, sure.
Asante sana.
God willing, will be here.
It's 9 a.m.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Atsato. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has convened the National Emergency Response Committee to deliberate on the country's preparedness on the expected El Nino rains. The meeting that brings together various stakeholders, among them key ministries, government agencies, development partners, humanitarian organizations and all the 47 governors, will be held Thursday. The DP said the meeting will discuss the level of preparedness and how to deal with expected emergencies so that the government is not caught flat-footed. He further pointed out the drainage challenges affecting the cities, an issue he insisted would be part of the agenda.
The Meteorological Department has told us that now they have scientific information that we shall have El Nino. I have convened this Thursday at 10 a.m. the National Emergency Response Committee so that we can now discuss the level of preparedness so that we don't get caught flat-footed and we prepare as a country how to deal with the expected emergencies arising out of El Nino.
The Kenya Met Department last week released a weather forecast warning the heavy rains are expected this year from September to January 2024. Some counties have already started taking proactive measures to ensure disaster preparedness. Now, Kenya will be hosting the Connected Africa Summit 2024. Information Communications and the Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Walo said the government is keen in providing services to Kenyans regardless of where they are in the country. The Continental Summit will build on the gains of Connected Kenya Summit, which has run for the last 12 years under the auspices of the ICT Authority.
Our ministry is committed to providing quality digital platforms for all Kenyans, regardless of where they may be as a country. Equally, we remain ready and available for consultations so that you can enrich, by way of value proposition, some of the policy propositions that we are putting in place to ensure that our ICT industry has got an enabling environment by way of policy, legal.
The summit, scheduled for 2nd to 5th of April next year, seeks to drive Africa's access to ICT and innovation as it opens up for intra-Africa trade through the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, focusing on the digital economy. The agreement, which has so far been ratified by over 47 African countries, is expected to leverage ICT and the digital economy to boost trade across the continent while creating new opportunities for the continent's growing youthful population. Now, Teacher Service Commission has directed all field officers who are currently on leave to resume duty on October 16, 2023 ahead of the national exams. TSC CEO Nancy Macharia said the move was aimed at ensuring the last phase of the preparation for the national exams is successful. She was speaking during the launch of the 2023 national exam season at NEC headquarters at a new Mitihani House in Nairobi. More than 3.5 million candidates will sit for national examinations this year, including the Kenya Primary Secondary Education Assessment KPSEA, KCPE and the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education KCSE. This year has produced the highest number of Kenya Certificate of Primary Education candidates, around 1.4 million ever registered in the country. According to Macharia, TSC has vetted a total of 223,223 teachers who will serve as supervisors and invigilators. Another 37,731 will play the role of examiners for the 2023 national examinations. At the same time, Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu said the new Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education Examinations grading system will take into account 2 compulsory subjects and the best 5 to determine the score of the candidates.
In the new grading system that will be applied to the 2023 KCSE examination, the only 2 mandatory subjects will be mathematics and 1 language, either English language, Kiswahili, or Kenyan Sign Language. In addition to the 2 mandatory subjects, the Kenya National Examination Council will consider another 5 best performed subjects. If one is good in sciences and he does well in other science subjects, that is what will count. Or if one is good in humanities and he scores highly in humanities, that is what will count in the final assessment.
Now, Egypt will hold a presidential vote on December 10th to 12th. Election officials said at the time the Arab world's most populous country is mired in a painful economic crisis. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, a former army chief in power for nearly a decade, has yet to formally announce his candidacy, but state-aligned media has already published messages of support from pro-government entities. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto, good morning. .4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, a few minutes after 9 o'clock and we're looking at traffic. Different parts of the city still continues and we are still in traffic hour. All right, what's happening on Uhuru Highway? It's busy as you're getting into the CBD. It's going to touch a little bit on Haile Selassie and then out towards the CBD into towards Westlands. That continues to be busy this morning. And we're also looking at traffic then coming off of Ngong Road. A little bit of that then coming in and touching into the CBD. Off of Thika Super Highway, it's much better now. Pangani at the underpass is where we see the most of it happening. And then it's going to get sticky as you come past Outer Ring at that junction. Kiambu Road coming in as well as Limuru Road will some holds up here and there. It's still looking very busy. It'll be so for a few more minutes. We're going to keep an eye on it, but it hasn't been that bad today. We've been able to get where you're going and coming still. Spice FM KE on X. Let's talk there and keep things moving this morning.
If you go out of this country and come back the same person, then you have a problem. Buy land, 1 million. Put it there for 5 years. What's the purpose?
It'll have increased in value.
No, that's the thing. That's darkness. You know, that's an eclipse. You don't do that.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person or that all hustlers are poor. I've seen that conversation.
Tell us, who is a hustler?
Who's a hustler? Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
Corruption in Kenya is a political accusation. The people who are actually corrupt are not pointed fingers at.
Kenya is not free. Kenya imeshikwa na mateka. It's under siege.
Have you seen that lodge on Nyeri Road? Very high fence. You can't even
Windows
sleep inside.
up near the ceiling.
Yes. And if you walk there at midnight, you see bats the size of cows.
And when it rains, it doesn't rain on that building.
Yes.
When you're at All Saints and it's raining, it doesn't rain on that building.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
We're getting
day.
into the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning, and now we're having a conversation about what needs to happen when there's non-performance at the county level or at any level, and we're saying, okay, is impeachment the way to go? Our guest for this hour is already seated, and as we get into those conversations, so we say hello to her. Let me remind you that the Employer of the Year Awards is back. EYA is an initiative of the Federation of Kenya Employers. FKE does that thing on my tongue. So what we're trying to do, celebrate FET organizations who've done phenomenal things. Those who've said, look, we're getting our processes and systems up to scratch. We're getting our policies implemented. We're creating and sustaining enterprise competitiveness. We have productivity that's top notch. These are the kind of organizations that the Federation of Kenya Employers wants to fet at this year's Employer of the Year Awards. You can participate if you're an FK member. You can also join the Federation and exercise those practices as you award, or rather as you go into these awards. There are categories across leadership and governance. There are categories in corporate performance and productivity, innovations and adaptation to change. It's across board. The awards take place on the 6th of October at Safari Park Hotel from 6 p.m. So all employers are welcome to participate by contacting the Federation, and you can do this by getting onto www.fke-kenya.org and find out how you can get on board with the awards this year. All right, our guest for this hour helping us have a conversation about what needs to be the recourse when there's non-performance. Veina Mongare is the governance and political analyst and a pro bono lawyer as well, and she joins us for this conversation now at 9. Veina, good morning.
Morning to you.
Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
This is nice because it's interesting. A lot of the analysts from a governance, from a political view in Kenya today are men.
Sure.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah? And often accused of having manners. Where just men
the patriarchal society that we have.
Wow, okay. So it's good that women are lending their voice to these conversations more. Yeah. And good to have you in the room this morning.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to welcome you in the Situation Room style to this conversation by way of the proverb from CT.
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Kenya. It's an East African country.
Sure, it is.
It is, yes. It borders Ethiopia, Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania, and the Indian Ocean. Okay. The water of the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty man.
The water of the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty man. Veina, what do you think of this?
Oh, okay. My thinking could be life continues besides the challenges that we have. Yes, we must press on with life. Yes, besides the sideshows that come on our way. Yes, persistence is key.
Indeed.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Well, CT offers points, and he's been given 11s. Since Monday, he's been giving out 11s.
You have to give a point. If someone gives you an opinion and explains it well, if the top mark is 10, it means they've surpassed it. They've just not stated the obvious, but they've gone into a little depth and given you, they've answered the question, you've asked your opinion, say, this is what I think, and they tell you what they think. Now that is good.
Indeed.
Yes.
It is.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, you also get 11.
Veina, you get 11
Thank you
as well.
so much.
They're flying off like hot cake from the oven. All right. So there have been talks, we've seen things happen, not just this year, not in the last few days, but months in past. And as we're looking at impeachment, whether it's a solution for non-performance, and usually when we see that there's some kind of frustration, it doesn't matter what level it is at, that usually the first words that tumble out of our mouths, well, this person must be impeached. Whether it is a governor, the talks of whomever could actually fall under the impeachment knife, and we're asking ourselves, so okay. If somebody's not performing, then they should be removed from office, isn't it? Is it that cut and dry? I mean, just as way of introduction into this.
I believe Article 1 of the Constitution gives the people of Kenya sovereignty. And to try to impeach someone could be subversion of the same. So my opinion could be a no. That if we impeach a sitting governor, it amounts to subversion of the will of the people of Kenya.
Simply because the people of Kenya are the ones who elected the government?
Yes.
So are you saying that if we give you a job, we cannot sack you because it is the same people who have given this individual the job and they now feel this guy is not fit for purpose?
No. Unless there is due process to be followed for you to be impeached. Failure to which you are subversing the very essence of the people voice.
I like what you're saying in this sense. The act itself, in the absence of due process, is subversion. Essentially, it's like a coup. But then, with our processes in this country and with our constitution, the 2010 constitution, it's virtually impossible to impeach anyone without following due process. You can't really. You can think about it.
Yes, it has happened before. I have an authority towards that effect.
Please
Martin Nyaga, Wambura.
Yes.
And four others in Embu. Yes. The same was subverted by the High Court. Overwhelming evidence was given. And later on, the authorities, their petition 3 of 2014, which changed the whole circus of impeachment.
Wait. This is interesting. Let's walk through this slowly, okay? And let's not talk legalese, because legalese requires training, which none of us have.
I will try to talk pure English.
Yes.
The
example you've given is interesting because that man, the attempt to impeach him was more than once.
Yes,
if I recall correctly.
Sure, and he was even given this, he was even voted in for the second time after the motion was dropped later on.
So let's walk this. There was this impeachment attempt.
Yes.
How did the matters get to court? I thought this process went through the Senate.
Yes, it did. But now the governor was, back then, the former governor of Embu was aggrieved by the decision and proceeded to court, gave instructions to his advocates, senior counsel Paul Muite and senior counsel Peter Wanyama, and they proceeded to court to pursue the legality of the process.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, you talk about a process where if the law has been followed, because there are provisions within the law to seek for impeachment on certain grounds of an individual if certain thresholds have not been satisfactorily met.
Sure.
And that is where the impeachment option then comes in and is viable.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, are you saying that if due process has been followed, then impeachment as an option to remove someone for non-performance then can be allowed?
Yes, it can be allowed if due process is followed. Yes.
Now,
and that's why I like the new bill which is coming to being, which indicates that we are moving towards the right direction, which is the Impeachment Procedure Bill 2018, which includes even public participation, which includes the process broken down, not like we had a lacuna. The law was implied in its nature before the bill if the bill survives and comes into law, then we'll not have that lacuna of the law being implied that where the due processes occur according to the law.
So as it stands currently,
yes,
those who serve in a position of oversight are the ones who then can bring forth a motion of impeachment.
Sure.
For example, the county assembly for the governor, the parliament for the executive. That can happen today. That's what we say. Those are the ones who serve in a position of oversight are the ones who can bring that about.
Yeah.
So are we saying that it is absolute from where you sit, that it is then necessary for members of public, do they serve in an advisory or an oversight role as per the law? No, they don't.
No, they don't.
But the people who are supposed to be putting in checks and balances to make sure that this individual is doing their job are the MCAs.
Yes.
So what is the problem if they come forward and say, actually, you know what, this person is not doing their job, as we've seen it in an oversight position, regardless of whether they were elected or not?
Okay, I understand to that effect, but I think to me it's more of a political persecution rather than a constitutional crisis or rather non-performance. Yes, especially if you look at the history of Meru politics, it has been a patriarchal society and in politics. The only people who have survived being female in the politics in Meru are only two. Kawira Mwangaza and the other MP who underwent the same conspiracy that Kawira Mwangaza is undergoing currently. Anarita Karimi was also an MP that had the conspiracy all the way. But I know for the Meru governor, right, currently, I know being a patriarchal society, for one, could be why they are attacking him. Secondly, yes, attacking her. And secondly, it could be that if you could look at how she even won that bid, it was on an independent candidate ticket. You see, so meaning basically you do not even have support of the county assembly members because you are just an independent candidate. So that could only mean that your support could be limited and you could be exposed.
But these individuals, whether it is in concert as an assembly, have come out previously in the first round of proposed impeachment for the first motion, had come out with documented evidence that they could now put under the light of scrutiny, that they could do this. So how do you play that vis-a-vis this chauvinistic patriarchal society issue that you talk about, where they would actually cite instances where there was an issue? And we're seeing the same thing play out even today, whereby they're saying absolutely it's even gotten worse than the last time.
I have no issue with them bringing out the evidence that they allege to have. But as for if the due process is followed and the hearings and the governor there is given due process, that is hearing and also to give his side of the story, then I think if the due process is given and public participation is engaged in the Senate sitting, I believe then justice could take its course. Yes.
All right. What do you think should happen when there are clear cases of non-performance? Let's just use the county level as an example. What actually should happen? What recourse do we take and say, you know what, this person was elected to do a job. We're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till whatever number of cases whereby you've not met the mark. You've not even met the minimal threshold for actually doing your job. What do you think the recourse should be?
Okay, I think I'll be guided by Article 181 that of the Constitution of Kenya that gives 4 instances that you can actually impeach a government, which is gross violation of a Constitution of Kenya, abuse of power or office, gross misconduct, physical and mental incapacity, or where it's believed that you as a governor, you have committed a law, you have committed a wrong, a crime, a crime against a known law in a national law either or an international law. Then I could specifically think it could be fair enough if they were to prove within those armpits of Article 181 of the Constitution, as read with Section 33 of the County Government Act, then it could be useful enough for non-performance if it were the case. Yes.
You know, there's something about the way you're going about this which is very refreshing. See, we don't interact with the law as often as you do.
Yes.
So when you give us a framework from which to actually look and prosecute this matter, if I may use the term, this is delightful. So now, after this, I'm going to be quoting statutes like no one's business. Someone asked me a question, I begin by quoting the statute. Says, article this.
Yes, you'll be guided by the article.
I've been guided by this article, and from this article, I can deduce this.
We can cross our fingers and hope the article exists.
But let me ask this question. You see, we're going to come back to the governors, but the issue of impeachment should apply to any elected leader.
Yes, it was to be.
Please, thank you. You've actually
but now we have the lacuna that it does not apply to every elected.
What created the lacuna? Did our constitution begin with the existence of the lacuna?
Yes.
Was the lacuna created?
Yes, because
after the promulgation of the constitution.
The lacuna, I think the framers of the constitution did not foresee that we could reach a situation where we could impeach even sitting MPs or even CSS. But
do you really honestly think that the people who took the time to create this very complex document and who are Kenyans could not see this? Really? That they couldn't see that there would be a need to impeach a CS, an MP, or even a president, that they didn't see it?
That's why they are trying to fill in the gaps by bringing in the Impeachment Procedure Bill of 2018.
So since 2018, that bill hasn't arrived where it was supposed to be?
No. It is still a bill. So
since 2018,
we are making steps towards the right direction. So I believe the lacuna will be filled up soon.
Explain to me this lacuna. So what do we have at the moment? What can we do when we have an errant CS, a member of parliament who isn't doing what can we do?
Most of the time when there is a lacuna in law, as litigators of the Constitution, we approach the court using various articles of the Constitution to seek interpretation from our courts. That is the High Court.
And has there been an interpretation in our High Courts on this particular subject?
No. Not that I'm aware of.
Which means no person or group of people have attempted to impeach an MP?
Yes. I'm sure there is none at the moment. I'm not aware of any.
Is there any existence of any process or any procedure that one could follow? None. I mean, at the moment, I can't even say I can begin the process, like, say, collecting signatures and things like that. My love tells me I can collect all the signatures I want.
They're going nowhere.
Yes, you can collect all the signatures and take as public participation, but could it really make any sense in law? I don't think so, because it only remains as just a piece of paper for you. Because there is no proper procedures towards impeaching an MP currently. There is no law.
Which also tells me that a good number of the people who are responsible for actually getting our constitution into place were politicians. Yes, because
one could assume that there is a layer of protection that lies within all of these laws that guarantees that they would not be touched.
Yes,
I could tend to think that as you could foresee something, and at some point it could, at the time of practicality now of implementing, I think they did not foresee at the time of implementation that there was need to really impeach an MP, a sitting MP.
Okay, let's talk a bit of legalese here. There's like a chapter 6, isn't it?
Integrity, yes.
Yeah, precisely, okay. What we have currently, is it what we originally had in our constitution? Has it not been tinkered with, left, right,
and center? It has been tilted.
Watered down,
somehow.
really, is what it has. Now, Chapter 6 is what would have given ammunition for the impeachment of individuals such as the ones I have mentioned.
Even the Leadership and Integrity Act
Yes.
could have given us the leeway.
Yes.
But do we have it? Yes, we have an act, but it doesn't
the form
give us the process of impeaching a public officer.
That's why, you see, why I brought it in. It tells me that they did see it. Because by the time you have an integrity bill, an act that deals with integrity, you've understood that this is something
there's a problem.
Oh, yes. And this is something we need to build, not just a framework. We need to build something with which we can actually ensure that it is actually what?
But then it also shows that then there is lack of appetite to deal with the issue.
Yes.
You can provide. So there's provisory here that says, okay, in the event that something would happen, or rather, no, not in the event that something happened. This is the manner in which you ought to conduct yourselves. But then it stops there.
Yes, it stops
Isn't
there.
it?
It stops at the impartiality, promoting the rules of national governance and being accountable.
But then after that, it doesn't
provide
in the event
the
that
penalty.
you should find yourself behaving or swimming in these waters. This is then what should happen. So that's the problem. We'll come back and we'll discuss that. But now,
a second, I had some provisions of the Leadership and Integrity Act, and I only came across non-disclosure for maybe banks outside Kenya.
Right.
That's the only time they speak of penalty to a public officer holding accounts abroad.
Okay, you talk about public participation and what should happen, where people should be making recommendations in terms of what happens when this. So let's take a break and come back and discuss those a little bit more. In the meantime, we want to give you some tea.
Thank you.
Let me tell you about the tea first of all. You've heard of Kurosoi South.
Yes, I did.
Kurosoi South now, there is the Kiptagich tea estates. They're beautiful. I've seen the pictures. And now from those tea estates come this wonderful tea. It's called Assis tea. And they make very many blends.
Awesome.
There's green tea, there's ginger tea, there's purple tea, there's masala tea. Across board, there's lemon tea. Good enough for fantastic with global exports as well as here consumed in Kenya. And CT wants to give you some purple tea this morning.
Oh, awesome. I could like to have one.
In fact, watch the tea moving from me towards you.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Assis tea, making life a little bit easier every morning with a cuppa. We'll be back after this and talk more about impeachments, what should happen.
Okay, thank you.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Oh, finally! It's my Standard Courier delivery.
At Standard Courier, we know that your time is valuable. That's why we guarantee swift and efficient deliveries to your doorstep every time. Give us a call on 0793 599 684 or schedule your next delivery by visiting our website www.standardmedia.co.ke/courier. Trust Standard Courier service for all your courier needs. We deliver with pride.
Join the Employee of the Year Awards year that seeks to fit organizations which put people at the core of their businesses and have implemented policies, systems, and processes that create and sustain enterprise competitiveness, resilient productivity improvement alongside industrial peace and harmony. The awards creates a platform for identifying, recognizing, and promoting excellence in corporate performance, people management, and labor relations practices amongst employers in Kenya. If you have all this, then you are the one to be feted. The awards will take place on 6th of October at Safari Park Hotel, Nairobi from 6 p.m. For more information, check the Federation's website at www.fkekenya.org. Air Awards, supported by Safaricom, GIZ, ILO, BAT, NCBA, and NITA.
Some very nice, mature music.
It really took me back to my days, and I can just feel young again and enjoy the vibes.
Spice.
I'm a big listener of Spice FM.
You play the best music.
This is 94.4 Spice FM. Business news with Spice FM.
I'm Dennis Aseto. GA Insurance has rolled out Kenya's first comprehensive electric vehicle insurance coverage as the adoption of eco-friendly transportation solutions gains pace. Uptake of EVs in the country has been rising lately, with sales of EVs increasing by 108% in the 2022-2024 financial year. The state is also eyeing 5% of registered EVs in the country by 2025. Its launch offers reprieve to buyers whose vehicles were previously uncovered on Kenyan roads. The Kenya Revenue Authority is deploying 1,400 revenue services assistants to help with iTax and the registration of trading businesses that are yet to be registered by the authority. They will be tasked with helping clients update their iTax profiles as well as verify location, contact information, among others. The taxman says that the move is part of its reforms to offer services to taxpayers across the country, besides enhancing productivity and culture. Kenyan poultry farmers are grappling with high losses amid an increase in illegal hatcheries and breeder farms that have resulted in an increase in the mortality rate of day-old chicks. They now want the government, through the Department of Veterinary Services, to regulate the sector to curb the menace. Illegal hatcheries and breeder farms are emerging as a significant problem for the poultry sector in the country. Britam General Insurance has unveiled a standalone health insurance package for children aged between 37 weeks and 18 years, dubbed
Business. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
About, okay, so should non-performance lead to impeachment? And then what are the grounds under which you can actually say this individual who was elected has either ill-performed, misperformed, underperformed, and based on that, what should be the recourse? Vena Mongare is our guest this hour, and as we have that, just as we're going to the break, we're saying, look, the law is provisory in terms of what it says you should or should not do, right? As an elected official, as, you know, state official, public official, whatever. But in this case, we're talking as elected officials at this level, there are certain things that you cannot do. But then there's a problem because it stops there and says, okay, after these things have been, if they happen to be done, what then should happen if you commit these things that it is recommending that you do not, right? Now, yes. It would appear as though, and the list is long, you know, you can't mismanage, you cannot be seen to do 1, 2, 3, one other thing. They cannot violate the Constitution, etc., etc. Abuse of office, mismanagement.
Incapacitated physically or mentally.
Right. Yes. So these things happen. I think...
commit crime, could be even, most of the time they commit... an anti-corruption crime. Yes.
Okay. So it says most you cannot do these things.
Procurement processes, yes.
Now, the physical or mental status one is interesting because just a few weeks ago we saw that, and it was in the public arena, so it's okay for us to say that a judge of the court was then removed from her position because of this one thing that we are talking about.
Yes.
About mental state of things, right?
Sure.
Okay. The problem here is that we are not then told what should happen in the event that one of these things occurs. And let's look at governors, because they seem to be the ones that bear the brunt of this impeachment threat often.
Yes.
Meru today, Nyamira tomorrow, Nairobi the other day, all over the place, right?
Sure.
Now, impeachment seems to be the way to go because there's no provision for something else. Is this a wrong assumption? Because we say, look, the law says you cannot do 1, 2, 3. Should you do it, the only other logical option is to get rid of you. And the way in which we are going to do this is to now put forward a motion for impeachment. If you're impeached by the assembly, you then go to the Senate. If the Senate convicts you of these things, then you step down from that position.
Sure.
What is wrong with that?
I think the law should be elaborate enough to provide. But currently we have a lacuna that we have agreed that we have a lacuna. It does not provide as to when the citizens of a particular county government are not satisfied with your services, they need to address or what avenues they have to address their issues. And it only gives us a chance to only go for impeachment.
Okay.
Which should be even the last resort, as a matter of fact.
Okay, we've been throwing this word around, lacuna. Sounds very nice. So explain to us now here, when we talk about there being a lacuna, what exactly are we saying?
Lacuna is just a gap in the law that does not exclusively explain to Kenyans that what should happen should they be dissatisfied with your service besides impeachment. We only have one option that we always run to, which is impeachment. I mean, we do not have any other avenues besides going to the EACC now, if it's a matter of procurement of goods that were done illegally. So I feel like the law should fill in the gaps.
What do you think should happen in a situation whereby the Constitution has, the laws of the Constitution have been broken by an individual, and it can be proved without a doubt that this has happened? What should happen? Should they be sued to court? Should they be charged in court? What should happen? Or does impeachment now suddenly seem like an easy option vis-a-vis going to court?
Yes. You know, impeachment could be the last resort, as I had earlier said, because I believe if we had other options, we could at least pursue them. But we are only left with that one option, which is impeachment. And at the end of the day, we could have pursuing our interests in another court. Maybe it could be even the High Court. But do we have that option? No.
We don't.
We don't have an option. We only have the EACC to put checks and balances on our public officers, besides now the DCI, who always work in handy with the EACC.
But the EACC, with all the sterling work they do, if we're to go by the last two elections we've had, where they've made their recommendations as to individuals whom they felt were of questionable character and moral standing, those reports were ignored completely by the IEBC. Ignored, literally. And yet, there was a case when we had a deputy CJ called Nancy Baraza. Her offense was what? She pinched
somebody's nose.
Precisely.
Pinched the guard.
That's it. That was the offense. Now, if you take that particular incident and you juxtapose it to some of the issues that the EACC, for instance, presented against some of the candidates or people who were then appointed to certain offices, surely, was that even an offense worth talking about beyond seeking an apology and saying, look, we are very sorry, I got carried away, blah, 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 etc., etc.
I was having a bad day.
I was having
Things
a bad
that can
day.
be explained on a human level.
Yes, it could be explained.
Yeah.
This job of mine has too much pressure. I've never had such a job before, and neither has anybody else in Kenya or female. So I'm happily... Look at the two. The lady, according to reports, she resigned. That lady was pressurized to resign.
I believe the Leadership and Integrity Act gives ethical standards of any public officer, be it a judicial officer, be it an executive officer, be it even an MP or any sitting elective member of Kenya. So I believe they should carry themselves with respect, decorum. They should conduct their affairs with accountability. They should promote unity. They should promote leadership qualities and unite.
And yes, and peace, love, and unity. Okay, yes.
All this while being human.
Yes.
But let me explain. So are the standards higher for people who are in the judiciary and the lower for people who are members of parliament?
Because absolutely. Because here we are. I'm going to just jump on that.
Now
because
that is the
here we are saying that you should behave in a certain way. These are in fact, every day, take this list and tuck it behind your ear because you must follow them every day. But then the people who are responsible for one, oversight. Number two, we're also saying that you
laws for creating the laws of a country.
The laws of a country. Yeah. And then at the same time, representing the people of the country, we hold them to a lower standard, and we don't even insist that the law should. We hold them to a lower standard.
In fact, it's a standard that by definition gets lower by the day.
Why?
The problem we have is enforceability, but for the leadership and integrity laws, we have them, and they should keep to their code of conduct. But implementation is a question altogether.
Okay. Now,
but the law is there.
Does this stand in the way then of actually when impeachment comes into play? Because more often than not, if we look at the cases of impeachment that have been brought before the Senate, more often than not, the cases they decline to convict. Okay?
They decline
to convict.
Okay.
Because, you know, they've been through the evidence and they said, okay, this person can make it through. We've not had as many cases end up in conviction and absolute impeachment as we have had cases that have gone towards the impeachment, through the impeachment process, and this individual has been exonerated, as we would say, right?
Yes.
More cases have allowed this person to go back to service than have convicted.
Like I began my earlier sentiments that this impeachment process is more political persecution rather than it is constitutionally.
Yes. Why?
Because most of the time you could have all the overwhelming evidence. Let's say even the hearing could be conducted, but we all know the Senate could vote, and that is the end game. For us, what if the overwhelming evidence is there? Yes, you have conducted the whole hearing, but the vote of the Senate goes 47, 2/3, meaning they have to go back to the drawing board.
So are you saying
they have to continue being in office?
So are you saying that the impeachment process, as it is currently constituted, is unfair?
No, it's more political than it is to justice.
Is there a way to get rid of that? Because CT often says here that, you know, senators are wannabe governors. Unless you've had a governor who say, okay, maybe later I want to be a... But senators essentially aspire to, at some point, serve in a higher capacity. So the likelihood of them throwing an individual under the bus for whom people remember tomorrow is very slim.
Very slim, for sure. Yes, and that's why I'm saying it's a political persecution. Because most of the time, they also eyeing for the bigger position.
Yes, they are.
So they couldn't do that. Even some of them, during the voting process, we have seen some of them moving out.
You know, this is what tells
they do not want to be labeled as being voted against their sitting governor. Yes.
You know, it tells me, you see, if you're looking at what the groups of individuals we refer to the political class, at least one thing they have going for them is they're consistent. Okay? Yeah, they're consistent. When they were involved in the creation of our constitution, they made sure this lacuna fellow just kept interfering in very many aspects of our law. Just when you think, good, we have something with which you can bite and hold with our teeth, you open your mouth wide and you bite, it's air. Whoop. Out. Is nothing. Then you get to a point where now there's the issue of governance. People who rule and govern over quasi-governments. Okay? Oversight body. Here, again, we see consistency. The very thing that you expect them to do, somehow, all this stuff just becomes fluff and smoke at some point. And voila, as you would like to say, we have a situation that you actually thought was there. And you thought you were actually observing a legal process or a judicial process taking place in the National Assembly. You then realize that actually it was a magic show. One moment there's something going there, the next moment there's nothing.
Yeah.
And you're left wondering, but what about all this evidence that we saw?
Sure.
Where did it actually just go?
So if we're saying all of this gets into a pot whereby it's going to then, beholden to the intrigues of politics, as we say,
yes,
what should actually happen? Because the truth of the matter is that a lot of times where we do see mismanagement, we do see irresponsibility, we do see abrogation of Chapter 6, oftentimes these things happen, whether we want to admit it or not. What should the recourse be? Because we've seen that the impeachment sometimes is a circus, like you've said, you know, that it would be political sideshows taking place. So what should be the recourse? Because one would hope that the eventual outcome is to have individuals who've been elected, who are actually doing the job that they've been elected to do, and want to make sure that development happens at the devolved units or anywhere else for that matter. So what would be the recourse? That if you're not doing your job in the way in which you said you should, and that you're actually going against what the law provides, what should happen if we're saying that impeachment is being used as another avenue for other things to happen?
Yes, I could tend to think that the laws should be amended in such a manner that if someone is not performing according to the way they had already promised their electors, voters, they should be either be taken to court or due process should be followed.
By whom?
That is, the law introducing avenues on how to solve or handle disputes concerning such kind of issues.
I'd like to ask you to join me in theorizing here, just theorizing. Do you think that even as we think about the law and amending it and doing this and the other, that we should also have in our law an avenue through which a president can be impeached?
For sure, that's why I was indicating to this forum that we have already a bill that is introducing what you are saying, which is the impeachment procedure, bill.
5 years,
down the line.
I am not sure whether it will see the light of the day, but it seems to introduce impeachment of a president, a CS, an MP, and also governors. And it gives proper procedures, by the way, including even public participation at the time of moving the motion at the county assembly.
This thing, for me, looks as though it needs to be a systemized or a systemic way of doing things, because we do have societies whereby the thought is very clear in the minds of public service, state service, and things like this, that they know that you carry this thing with you as part of you, that if you behave in a certain manner, there's no question of what will happen to you. That so much so that if you find yourself dithering in a space whereby somebody is asking, might you have, before you even give them an opportunity to decide, you step down from your position. So the system has created over time, with practice or otherwise, a place whereby it is clear in the minds of everybody how they should be operating. So there's no question in the mind of anybody what you would do if that spotlight shines on you. The laws have been put in place. The public acceptance or the public position is that, look, you mess up, you go. It's very simple. Do you think we can get there?
Over time, we can. And this is because the law as it is, it has so many lacunas and they need to be filled. The gaps need to be filled. If the gaps are filled, then we do not have any lacuna as to doubt what we are supposed to do in this particular instance.
Let me ask the question. When you have a lacuna in law, you said you take it to the High Court for interpretation.
Yes.
Can interpretation be challenged?
Yes, it can be challenged up to the Supreme Court of Kenya, which is the final court.
Is interpretation not a personal thing? That that's what interpretation means. That this thing has been downloaded to me in this manner. This is how I understand it.
How you perceive it.
How do you challenge that?
You can challenge that using the law.
Yeah, meaning
you can challenge that.
You introduce a new interpretation,
saying that the magistrate, the judicial officer then erred in law in interpreting this particular aspect of the law to mean this and not to mean the
other.
Yes.
Is that why they sent this 3-judge bench? Okay.
You were right. Keep going.
I've got it right.
Yes,
now.
you are.
I've got it right for once.
You're good.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's judges sitting on a bench.
Yes.
So
that it isn't one person.
Yes.
So there are these 3 wise individuals who then oversee this process and say, this is what we have seen.
Yeah.
So that becomes a little tricky, a little more difficult to challenge, isn't it?
Yes, it becomes challenging, but with good research, you can challenge. Yes.
Moving forward, what do you think needs to be the situation in which we find ourselves in? I do agree that there's a lot of political sprinkling when it comes to impeachment.
Yes.
That even in the bringing up of a motion, that members of a county assembly, all 60, whatever of them, come together and they say, you know what, this thing is not meeting our interests. It's not meeting our needs. So you know what, the best option is to get rid. They know that the power rests in them to be able to bring a motion forward.
Sure, they know.
What do you think ought to be done so that even these cases of impeachment that are brought forward are done so whereby individuals actually feel, and they've come together in concert and they said, look, we know that something is not going on right. This is not the person for this position. What do you think needs to be done? Because how then do you prove that somebody is not being political by the decision that they've made or selfish?
I believe public participation can be exercised more at the grassroots level. Yes, before they bring the motion now to the Senate. It can be more involving at the grassroots level.
Where involving would mean what exactly?
Public participation to be invited to the members of the public of that particular county. Yes.
Okay. And so now if we're looking at what threshold then would be met, because it can't just be people sitting around a picnic saying, well, you know, I was expecting that a borehole would have been dug here by, you know, if you want a borehole and you thought it would be a lift your hands, if you feel that this road was not done up to scratch. I mean, what would be the threshold to say, okay, actually, yes, public participation has occurred here, and based on that, we feel that what would be the threshold? What would you need to meet?
I could refer you to a particular case. I know you don't like legalese.
Oh no, legalese is good when it's explained.
Indeed, very.
Yes.
Yes, there's a Nyeri case. I can't find the reference, but there's a Nyeri case that explained meaningful public participation. That it should be qualitative enough and quantitative enough. So it lays the threshold of meaningful participation. But that should not be just as an authority. It should be captured in the law to explain further what is public participation and meaningful participation.
So there's a court ruling that defined this.
Yes, that defined this.
So then in law that becomes a precedent.
Yes, sure, it becomes.
Okay. Can precedents be challenged?
They can be turned.
You know, every time you say something, you'll forgive my asking. This is for me taking legal classes. I am actually learning, so I want to know so that when I speak to someone, I can speak.
It can be overturned by the higher court.
Very good.
Yes. In this case, it was a high court decision. It can be overturned by the Court of Appeal.
Okay. I want to look, I mean, even as we come down, you talk about this this Act 2018.
It's a bill.
It's a bill.
Yes.
All right, it's a bill. It's not an act yet.
Yes.
It's still a bill.
Yeah.
We don't even know what level of process it is at the moment.
Or do we?
No, we don't know. It was
draft.
At reporting stage.
It was at reporting stage.
Yes.
Okay, that should be fun.
It has not.
That's not moved.
It has stalled.
Okay, that should be fun in terms of what will be done. Because what we're saying essentially is that with that bill not moving forward to readings 1, 2, 3, not going towards adoption, not going towards discussion or anything, or then tabling, nothing happening, that it's just going to be that. It's just going to be words on a piece of paper, but that we are going to still continue with this impeachment process as we see today. Something could come up, and not something could come up. There are talks of already things happening in county 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're saying that this process is politically motivated, it is politically carried out, it is politically decided upon, and that we do not have the interaction of people. So essentially we're looking at many times flawed processes, but because we decline to do something about it in law, we're going to have to carry on with the way things are currently. Is that what we're saying?
Sadly, it's the truth until this bill sees the light of the day. The impeachment procedure act bill until it becomes an act, then we'll be able to severe with the situation as it is. Yes.
Who then do you think suffers in the balance?
Often,
because there are two sides here. There's the assembly. Well, there's the assembly that brings the case. There's the person on the other side of it who must answer. But then, who do you think is really suffering in the interim?
And then I tend to think it's the normal mwananchi that could suffer because they gave power to the people. They gave power to an individual who has not performed, but yet due process is not well laid in law, so they will end up in limbo. Yeah.
I think there's much more that can continually be, discussed about this, and hopefully the question is that would come to. But then finally, who is the one, the person, the group of people who should actually be taking this thing and hoping that it will be pushed forward to have something done about it?
It's parliamentarians and us, the watchdogs, law practitioners.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we wait for you to...
No, you don't wait, man. You encourage them.
Okay.
Yes.
So this would be our encouragement to you that actually something will be pushed and that something would actually be done, so that we see a process whereby it's not politically motivated, but that we see that the due process is followed, and that it would then be counted deemed fair on each side, because then you can imagine you sneeze or you blow your nose the wrong way and somebody's going to throw impeachment motion at you, depending on where you sit, and perhaps it can be used better. Ednah Mongari, we thank you for being our guest this hour. Thank you for shedding light on some of these things. Hopefully, as we have more conversations around them, we'll have a clearer understanding of how these things ought to work. Thanks so much for being our guest on the Situation Room today.
Thank you so much for hosting me as well.
Do tell us how that purple tea is. Purple tea and other varieties of Assis tea from Kurusoy South District and the rolling plains of the Kiptagich tea estates. I've got green tea. Let's see what that does in terms of a powerful source of antioxidants. And you can have purple tea, masala tea, lemon tea, black tea. Doesn't matter. The variety is great. Sold here in Kenya and around the world. Folks, thank you for being part of Kenya's biggest conversation today. We'll be back again at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning to do this all over again, having conversations that affect you and me, and conversations that affect the country at large. Enjoy Spice FM through the rest of the morning, an hour of great music and then Sugar and Spice thereafter. Conversations continue tomorrow morning. Again, thanks to all our audiences across on social media and right here, as well as KTN Home. Asante Sana. We'll talk again tomorrow. It's 10 a.m.